Okay, I am here with two Enneagram 8s, Angelo and Zapson. Let me hear y'all. No, no, it's Angelo.
Hello.
And that is Mr. Zapson. And I am here with two Enneagram 7s, John and Shane.
What up, you bitches?
Mr. Shane, what you saying, man?
What up, though? What up, though? What up, though? Shout out all the fans. They know me.
Yeah, to give short depictions of the people here of the archetypes, Mr. John, Enneagram 7, he is a diagnosed narcissist and avid nihilist. Mr. Shane here, he is a Christian rapper, debater, fun guy. Mr. Angelo, he is a businessman. He is an ultra sales mastermind genius, Mr. Man. And Mr. Zapson here is spiritually enlightened, professional at wake induced lucid dreaming. Hit him up for some advice on how to master your own dreams and how to unlock superpowers on this earth in your lifetime now. And that is enough information about everyone here. We're going to go right into it. John, do you feel
What's
that the
up?
Enneagram 7 accurately depicts you? Why or why not?
Hell yeah, definitely does. Cause like I'm hedonistic as fuck. I like drinking. I like getting high. I like anything that gives like instant gratification. I think like it explains me pretty well because it's pretty much just like I disagree with the notion that like you necessarily have to be optimistic because I'm not necessarily optimistic. I think like it's more accurate in the sense that like oh if you're a 7 you chase instant gratification. I think like yeah that's technically me. I think like it's accurate in the sense that like why does everyone think they have to make life unnecessarily hard? Like it already fucking sucks. So why make it like unnecessarily tedious and like extra hard? You don't have to fucking do that. So like let's just vibe and have a good time. In a short way of saying it, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah. Shane, do you think
I
that
disagree.
Enneagram 7 accurately depicts you? Why or why not?
Yeah, I think Enneagram 7 accurately depicts me. Joy, energy, and hope. I think those are things that I resonate with, and are like the light sides of like being a 7 to some degree. But I also find myself very distracted, very hedonistic, and that's been a real battle. With my religious side, trying to desire self-reflection instead of pushing it off. Um, being kind of stuck in loops and modes and stuff like that. Uh, and fearing that as well, like fearing being stuck and things like that, like constantly wanting something new, wanting something different. Um, yeah, I think those are pretty accurate descriptions of my life and things I resonate with and feel. So yeah.
So, for both of you, what do you feel are the pros and cons to being a 7? What do you like and dislike about being a 7?
you want to go first, Shane, or should I?
I can go first. I'll probably be quicker than you. I think I like the. I feel like when I think of sevens, very like spontaneous, resilient, visionary. I think they desire to live really fully, and those I love that. I love, um, like I said, joy, energy, hope. Those are things I deeply, deeply, deeply uh h- hope to embed in my life and the others around me. Like I care so much for those things. Um, as for the things I don't like, it's just about the hedonism. Like, and not just the hedonism, but everything else comes with it. Like, I avoid stillness. I put myself in terrible situations. Um, I think I spend most of my time coping rather than actually addressing myself, and I just don't think it's a healthy way to engage with the world. But I think it's like natural for sevens to do that, and so I almost like hate my nature in and of itself because of it. Because I'm like the things I desire to do, I'm limited or feel like I can't do because I'd rather do other things. I'd rather say chase the spontaneousness of something than sit with myself and uncover myself.
All right,
But
that's
John,
chill.
John's answer is gonna be different. Go ahead, John. I already know your answer is gonna be different.
All right, yeah. What I like about being a 7, I think like the good thing that I would have to say about it is like I just don't take myself as seriously as other people, or not even necessarily myself. I think like life in general. I think like yeah, like you can expect to like everything I've said earlier, like everyone like takes things too seriously. And I guess like yeah, because I'm like nihilistic, I'm just like you're only gonna be here for like a limited amount of time. So I'm just like, you can't really plan and get it all. You can get it all temporarily. That's more so my philosophy. So I feel like in a sense that makes me more chill in that regard. And I'm not gonna lie, yeah, I definitely have like a different answer with like Shane, because I think I kind of struggle what I don't like about being a seven, because I think like being able to fulfill being a seven is like pretty much only like the reason that I can find like any sort of like enjoyment at all in life. So I guess like the only thing that I really don't like about it is that like people are not like on this ride with me. They're always just like, well, what about this? What about that? And I'm just like, who cares about that? We have something great right here, and let's just take it. And they're like, nah, there's got to be more. I'm just like, no, bro, this is it. So let's just like have fun. And I feel like I have moments where I want to be extroverted, let's say, or I want to like, do this or do that, but it's just like people just like they can't keep up, or it's like they're almost scared. Like Shane is kind of scared in a sense because he said he doesn't like that hedonistic part about himself, but I'm just like, nah, bro, you need to embrace that. And I feel like people fight their nature like all the time, and I'm just like, yeah, like life does not have to be hard. Like you want to do this, so it's like because of like how the like world like functions, why are you like almost duping yourself into thinking that like there is some pride in like struggle? To a sense, I'm just like, that is the dumbest thing I have ever heard, if I'm just being upfront. But yeah, that's it.
So before I turn it over to the eights, if you guys could change your Enneagram, would you? If you could, in a blink, decide not to be a seven, would you make that decision?
No,
Um,
fuck that. What's
I don't know, but that's hard because it's
we
like
struggle the least. I don't know if it's a bold take, but we struggle the least. Like I don't think like why would we want to like change to like like anything else? Because like this might sound like a self dunk. I feel like to us, Shane, but it's just like for me personally, because I'm a seven. If I'm too stupid to acknowledge my problems, then like okay, that's chill. So either way, it's like, oh my gosh, if you're dismissing your problems versus fixing your problems, in my seven brain, that translates to the same thing. So no, I would not change it. But yeah, go ahead,
I
Shane, if you have
figured,
something to
yeah, I
add.
figured for you, like that would translate the same thing. For me, I'm just like when I think, especially because I'm like mixing with my MBTI, like when I think of like ENFPs who are not sevens seem to have such an easier time with the world to where they can still get their extroversion out in these like really dope ways, but they uh like I'm thinking of my friend who's a ENFP 3, Enneagram 3, and she be doing it, bro. Like she be granted, I do think she exhausts herself in the same way that I do, but I she be going out, being social, but yet still trying to be on top of a lot of things and getting things done. And so I think there's like a best of both worlds almost kind of in that. So maybe, but I don't know. I also really like the who I am and what I am and how I am. And I feel like this is just a different battle that I have to uncover. I'd prefer to be less hedonistic. If I could just be a seven and be less hedonistic, I'd probably choose that before going to something else. But I know it's probably wrong, so I'd probably change it. Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. Flipping it over to the eights, before we start talking about your guys' Enneagrams, what are your guys' thoughts, feelings, intuitions on Enneagram sevens, or just about what John and Shane have said so far?
Good. I would say the Enneagram sevens are pretty interesting. Here's my whole take on it, but I mean it's interesting. I can definitely see their perspectives when it comes to things, but I think we'll break into that a little bit later. They're interesting. That's what I'll say.
Okay. Zapson, any thoughts, feelings, intuitions about sevens or about just hedonism in general?
Hedonism, as in like you enjoy mundane things.
The endless pursuit of pleasure.
I feel like the pursuit of happiness in regards to the acquisition of selfish desire is the problem with like negativity in general, you know? If you look at a lot of spiritual scriptures, they have elaborate metaphors for selfish desire being the root of all evil. So hedonism Me personally, I think that's like a character cry for help.
Dang. Coming
I'm
after a
dying.
Shane.
Interesting. So twisting it more over to eights, what are your guys's what are you guys' feelings about the descriptions of Enneagram eights or just the mentor archetype in general? Do you think that it accurately depicts who you are?
Yeah, I would say it's um, overwhelmingly accurate. I didn't really see the mentor thing. That didn't really make sense to me for a while, but then it hit me like again, like we were saying, I can become competent, but then I worry about other people, and I'm like, fuck. Like I feel like if I leave the tribe for 10 minutes, everybody's gonna die. So it alleviates my anxiety to be like, hey, you should get, you know, possibly a little better at the survival thing, and it makes me feel better. I think it's pretty well.
Yeah, for me, I just feel like with awareness comes power, and with power comes responsibility. So usually we cater for those that have a lack of awareness. Whether it makes me
Understandable.
feel good, it definitely makes me feel good, but that's more because ignorance is irritating.
Okay. What do you guys think are the pros and cons of being an eight? Likes and dislikes.
Mm, I would say that the likes are just like I always feel fulfilled. Like I could be up or down in a goal in life, and I still feel fulfilled. Like I think eights have more of a tendency to be very pro. This may not be true, but I think eights really make a point to live up to their value systems. Any shortfall of that, just pisses us off. So I think I'm like an always fulfilled person, if that makes any sense. Like I know that I'm getting everything out of every last moment in life, and it feels amazing. I think the pitfalls of it, it's kind of like what John talks about, and Shane a little bit about like if you make your whole life about just goal setting and you forget who you are beyond like these roles that society gives you and these jobs that society gives you, then you might get manipulated by a system a little bit. And I think it could be easy for that to happen to eights if we're not like self-aware. Anyways, that's my take on it. What you think, man?
Yeah, I assume that all eights had a level of self-awareness at the very least, right? Because or at least I came to the conclusion that tutoring people is just necessary if you want to sustain an environment. You look after the environment that's sustaining you as well. I'm not really sure on the point of ambition, but somebody said to me the other day that trying to transcend ambition is quite an ambitious thing. So maybe it has some credibility towards it. I think the cons would be in relation to a lack of self-awareness, but I feel like that applies to any of the enneagrams.
If you guys could change your archetype, would you? Or would you remain an eight?
Yeah, fuck no. I would say an eight, especially listen to like Shane and John say this. You know, I think the Enneagram things are about values, not just a personality outcome, but like a conscious awareness of one's own values. So I mean, you could have a like Shane is actually like thinking about it, like, oh well, maybe. I think at the end of the day, you know, you ended up what your value system is. So it would be like asking me, hey, would you ever value something that you don't value enough to change your values to something that you don't? And I don't really think that's possible. So for me, fuck no. Like I gotta be locked in with this. What do you think?
Yeah, if changing your values means changing your enneagram, then my values probably wouldn't change either.
Okay. Uh, to the sevens, what are your guys' general thoughts, feelings, intuitions about eights?
I mean, they cool.
I mean, if I'm just being upfront, I think like try hard. I'm sorry, that's what I think. Like try hard. It's just like please notice me, and I'm just like I get that to a certain extent, but at the same time I don't because I know like there's these like subtle little like differences, but I'm just like yeah, I think like I understand being a try hard, but try hard's not going to be my entire personality. No offense, but yeah, that's it.
Okay. And we're going to get to a section about negative questions for the other types. Before we get there, quick disclaimer. Angelo and Zapson are 8W7s. Shane and John are 7W8s. But no one here is a major Enneagram head. So I don't feel it necessary to post questions about that. The way that I would tell the viewers that I foresee that playing out is that Angelo and Zapson are goal oriented and they love teaching other people. However, I've seen both of them be like, what are we doing? Why would I just sit around? uh, let's do something meaningful. And I think that pursuit of teaching and that pursuit of meaning is their own stimulation seeking. It is their own sensation seeking. I've seen Angelo multiple times throughout my life be like, man, we're sitting around. What the fuck are we doing? Let's start a business. Like, why are we doing this? Is boring. Like, the pursuit of growing is the stimulation for them. And then for John and Shane, both being 7W8s, the way that I see that their 8 comes out is they both love debating, and I see a little mentor in them. I don't think that John would proclaim that his point in life is being a mentor, but when John makes, he has a channel, Stoner Shul on YouTube, that is at CHUL, Stoner Shul, and TikTok, cream cheese in my foreskin, self-explanatory.
Represent.
Yeah, and in both of those forms of media, he's giving information. He's doing his version of teaching. Shane loves debating. He also loves teaching. If I'm correct, your life goal is to become a pastor, right, Shane?
Yeah, one of the big ones now. If that one doesn't happen, I do want to do some form of like teaching, whether in like for like after school program when it comes to history or something like that. I just like yeah, I do have a desire to teach in some way for sure.
Yeah. So that's how their wing comes out. But again, neither of them are absurdly into Enneagram, so I don't feel it vital to pursue that with them intellectually. The next point, if you guys do have this, I asked you guys sevens have a negative question about the eights. Eights have a negative question about the sevens. What's a challenging question you have for the other Enneagram? And since John already opened it up calling eights tryhards, I'll pose it to you, John. What negative question, negative challenging questions maybe do you have for the eights?
Okay, yeah, basically. The negative question that I have, yeah, like in relation to seeing like eights as like tryhards is that like when I read about like the Enneagram 8 like archetype, they're always worried about like being controlled or something. So there's always this like, relentless pursuit of like ambition or something. But to me, it's like, and because I don't really care so much, it's just like you're still allowing the world to dictate how you should be. And I never really felt much about this every single time people would say it, but I feel like at least like for this conversation, like now it like definitely fits because I heard that like the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And it's like if eights want to portray themselves as like so confident and like put together, then I don't really understand like why you're acting that way in a sense. Or I think like the negativity that I have towards like eights is that just like I don't know, maybe in like a subtle way, like I want to manipulate you to be like seven wing eights. Like eight wing seven does not make sense to me. Seven wing eight makes like a lot of sense because like like I relate to you in the sense of like not wanting to like be controlled. But I think like I'm actually already there in comparison to you because like like I don't have to let the world in a way dictate how I want to be. And I've been going on tirades lately about like if I'm just being blunt, like communism, socialism, and some like anarchy and like shit like that. So it's just like low key, like that's probably just a thing for me where like I want to turn the entire world that way. But yeah, if you get what I'm putting down, like I should probably just stop there.
Yeah, so what's the general question?
Uh, saying like why say you don't want to be controlled, but at the same time you're still trying to prove a point that seems to contradict in my worldview.
Okay. Eights.
All right. I mean, I think it would help us to kind of like break down what was said, and then Sap, if you want to add stuff to what was said, and then John, feel free obviously to like like jump in here, stop us, add anything that you need to as
Yeah.
well, within reason. Right. But you said the word portray. What do you mean by that?
I guess just like being noticed. Like that's what I mean by like portrayal. Like when I'm talking about like anybody like portraying themselves, it's like they need that spotlight there. But I think like as a seven, because my eight isn't as strong, I feel like yeah, like I'm not necessarily a mentor in that same sense. So it's like I don't need to like say something. To me, I feel like I can just like dip in the water in and out. But I think like as an 8, you feel like you're compelled that you actually have to swim, I guess. Like you don't see it as optional. It's like a must. That's what I don't understand.
What is, you said it. What do you mean though? Like by portray?
Do you think,
By
John,
portray.
would it be fair to say that you believe that the eights and their desire for authority is a desire to be noticed?
Yeah, in a sense. I guess yeah, because it's just like I think like 8s can't handle like just being there. Because I think like me, like I can handle just being there and having fun. And I'm I have an openness in the sense where it's like if you want to connect with my vibe, like hell yeah, you can take this shot. Hell yeah, you can take like a puff of this like blunt or some shit. But I think like for an 8, it's almost like I don't know, like I don't feel secure. So I need people to join my club. Or it's like, I don't know, you guys would say this is like an unfair comparison, but it's like that friend who has like a stick up their ass because like they wanted to eat here and everyone else thought we should go like there better. And it's like they might not throw a cow about it, but you can tell they're definitely being passive aggressive about it, low key, because they didn't get their way.
Yeah,
Maybe.
there's a lot of interesting things that you added in there. I still don't think that we got to the bottom of portray, but so you're basically saying like a need for recognition.
Yeah, you could put it that way. You could put it that way, or at least like a specific kind of recognition, a specific like you need a pat on the back almost, or like you need someone to say like, "Oh yeah, I never thought about it that way. You're so cool. I like your mind," or some shit. Which I can relate, but I see it as like I'll let it happen as a natural byproduct, not a necessity.
Yeah, it's funny because like I do feel like it's true that I enjoy recognition. Um, I guess the part that makes less sense to me is like portray. I don't necessarily feel like I'm portraying anything. Like I feel like I feel like the concept of portray means that you're not something and like you're trying to be something that you're not. And I
That
guess
is
it's
what
not
it
my
looks like to
view.
me to be fair. That's what it looks like to me to be fair. So maybe like yeah, like that's just what I don't understand, but like yeah, like because I think like my presupposition and axiomatic thing that, like you would only act that way because not being noticed is not good enough. So I feel like in that natural state of not being noticed, I feel like that's not something that you're portraying. But I feel like wanting to step out of that, to me, it feels like that's where you need to be portrayed. But I see that
Yeah,
difference though.
yeah. I can see like a good point with it though. I'm like actually kind of conflicted on this because on one hand, like I do enjoy recognition, right? Like it's a pretty cool thing. On the other hand, like if I was to choose recognition or competence, I'm throwing the fucking recognition out the door every single time. Whereas I feel like, and then Shane said this too about like being portrayed as being wise. I don't know if it's like portraying. It's like why does Michael Jordan portray himself as an athlete? Like that sentence doesn't make any sense when you put it that way. So, um, I don't know. I can get what you're saying. Like, we create self images and live up to them at the end of the day. So I do think that recognition is pretty cool. I just think like what's paramount is being competent in the things that I want, and then having power, freedom, and just power to the point of having freedom. So I don't know if it's portray necessarily. Another thing that you said, I think the 7-8 stuff is cool. By the way, like how you said you can just chill. Like, bro,
Mhm,
that's really fucking cool. Like, I wish I had a little bit more of that sometimes. That's a good
mhm.
point. And then also, you went to the military though, which I'm like, that kind of seems like being controlled. And we like, I think three of us here were gonna go to the military. And then lastly,
I wanted the
you told
benefits. I wanted the
me,
benefits.
okay, you've also told me you feel the world is controlled by billionaires, which is like, I don't have that perspective. Like, you said that you're farther than us and not being controlled. I don't know. It kind of seems like you've just thrown in the towel and now you want to like tear it all down because you feel controlled. I could be wrong. Give me some counterpoints.
I
That's my
mean,
view on that.
I I
Jackson, if you want to weigh in too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I definitely don't disagree that we are all controlled to like a certain degree, but I think like my contention as like a 7 is like you should want to reduce being controlled as much as possible. And I know that 8s say they don't want to be controlled, but I think like what they interpret as like not being control is like, oh, I'm better at the game than you. And I feel like as a 7, that's the thing that I don't understand because how would I put this?
For what? Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's like yeah, like I've gone on tirades about like billionaires like controlling us and like shit like that because I think like that's motivated by oh, I see that they control us. I acknowledge that they control us, but I don't want them to control us. Whereas I feel like an 8 might have an attitude that's more like I'm not going to be controlled if I can just like play the game a little bit better, but I'm just saying that like it's
It's
already
not
rigged to
necessarily
begin with.
playing
So like,
playing the game,
yeah.
right? It's competence. Competence is freedom. Competence is control. If you and I live in a village, and you cannot pick any berries, so you are going to die without me. At the end of the day, you are going to be more controlled by me. Now, if you got better than me at picking berries, I'd be like, more power to you. Whereas I feel like
I'm
what
saying yeah,
you
this
would
is what
do
I'm
is
saying.
you would be like nobody's allowed to pick berries because
No,
you
not
guys are better
not
than me at picking berries, and I feel controlled. And I'm like, that doesn't really sound fair.
yeah, not nobody's allowed to like pick berries, but I'm saying that like with my, I guess if I'm just being blunt, like communist sort of like ideal. So I'm saying that like we can literally create a world where, let's say for example, nobody has to starve for food because yeah, you guys have heard me say this. Like there's literally so much food that gets wasted like in a factory just because like it's not going to be accepted just because like oh
You
it did
know,
not
there's less
technically
people
like
starving
quality.
today than there's ever been, right?
That's fair. That's fair. But I'm saying that like, but I'm saying that like in an ideal, it's like it would never happen. We would never open the chance for it. I'm not trying to make this too political though, but I'm just like I don't know. You sort of get what I'm saying? Because like I don't want to like detract from like because we have like a full
No, like
conversation that
you can go deeper on it, because I kind of do, but like, constellated a little bit more, so we're on the same page together.
I think like yeah, because like I spoke last time when like Alan and everybody else was like still around. So I think natural hierarchies are fine. I think like for example like I brought up this point to everybody before that it's like okay if we had enough supply to start like a coffee shop and let's say we can have like an actual sort of like free market, I think like no one should have a leg up whether it's like generational wealth or whether it's like this or that. Like if we had both enough supplies to make like a coffee shop and we could like experiment with drinks whatever like this or that, if we weren't worried about money we would actually know who's top dog in that situation because we would know that nobody had a leg up, nobody had any sort of like so it's like people are actually going to you because you are the one that actually makes like really good coffee and this or that. And it's like I don't believe in a free market, for example, because like there's only like a few brands that are considered like the top dog. Like if you search for like coffee, 9 times out of 10, what's gonna show up? Like, oh, Starbucks, or think of like any popular like coffee brand that like, you probably won't get anything local. Or like even if you do, like it can be on like Google or some shit, but there won't be any pictures, there won't be any reviews because people are manipulated and
So
already
so you're
guided to what oh,
so
sorry.
you're not for a natural hierarchy.
Um I am for a natural hierarchy, but I'm saying that like my definition of a natural hierarchy would be that if I don't have to worry about starting a business because I don't have enough money, and you don't have to, yeah, like if I don't have to worry and you don't have to worry because of like money or some shit, then we will see who's actually better because like when I was talking to them before about this, I'm saying that like I feel like a lot of these billionaires are scared to like give a lot of their wealth and actually help out a lot of people because
Not
maybe
true. I mean, a ton
there's
of people
somebody in
make
the
money.
general population that could actually surpass them. There's somebody in the general population that could make like better drinks than Starbucks, or they can run a better grocery store or some shit than like Target, but we would never
Yeah.
know. So like my challenge to these billionaires would be more like okay, so even out the playing field because if you say that you're top dog, if there's no worry about money, you should still be top dog. And the fact that you won't let that
Yeah.
happen, I feel like you're kind
So,
of scared. It's already rigged.
so John, you're saying that if we took money and threw it out, that if you take your mindset and you took my mindset and we put us both in the woods, that you would somehow be more competent than me.
If
It's not
well,
happening.
not necessarily, but I'm saying that like the hierarchy would be like more naturally because like if it's true that
What do you mean by
hypothetically
natural?
you were like if you were already the best at coffee, then you would still be the best at coffee whether there was incentive to like make money or not. That's what I'm saying would be like a natural hierarchy. So like without the money, if you were already so good at it, you were already so much better than me at it, then why do you need money as an incentive to like prove that? Like it would already just like speak for itself. but it is rigged because I know, for example, that like a lot of these companies, they did get a step up because a lot of rich people obviously come from like generational wealth. A lot of rich people aren't even necessarily like
A lot of is just kind
creative.
of like normalization, though. Like, there's tons of
Say that
rich
again?
people who are first generation wealth, like more than there's ever been in the history of mankind. So I want to hear your point out more though, but there's just like a lot of contradictions and just things that aren't true. Like, drive the point home. Like, how would you wrap that package?
Um. Okay. Oh, yeah. I guess to just like sum everything up, the like what I've been saying. I think like I don't think you need to prove that you're better at oppressing than oppressors. It's more like I think we could easily live a life where if we challenged, if I mean not challenged, I mean like if we like freely
What do
gave
you mean by oppress
everybody.
though? Like, it's a loaded,
Huh?
like, just it could mean anything. What do you mean oppress? You're better than other oppressors at oppressing? What does that mean?
Yeah, because like it means because like rich people have to be replaced. So they're already going to be people that come from like nepotism, or people that are like with like a step up. So if only a select amount of people have the chance to be like the new replacements, then I feel like I'm saying that like that's where I kind of see like billionaires as like a fraud, because you didn't make an actual competition happen. You were already gonna win regardless of the outcome, but you're giving an illusion to the general society that they have a chance to like work a leg up. And this is why I even said that like it's stupid to me when conservatives say that like, oh, if everybody were to just like work really hard, then they could be like successful. Then I'm just like, okay, then just cut to the chase then, because theoretically if I just said this outright, they would be like, oh my gosh, that's a problem, because then you're just like giving people stuff and it's like, oh, they didn't really work for it. But if it were actually true that everybody had the chance to like work and like be successful and hypothetically, let's say, be a billionaire, then that would already be universal income. Because but that's not true, because conservatives will literally contradict themselves in this moment of like speaking, because they'll say, oh, if everybody just worked hard, they could succeed. But then they also have this attitude of like, oh, survival of the fittest. But if it's survival of the fittest, then by
That's a
definition, no matter
blanket
how
statement
hard
though. Like,
people work,
you're
then they would
saying
have to
they.
lose.
What do you mean by they? Like, you're making a blanket statement that everybody in one category
Well,
all has the
I can't
same
because
exact
I can't.
beliefs. That's just not
Well, I
true.
mean, I can't list every billionaire. So like a lot of times, like when I'm saying they in this conversation, it's
But
probably either referring to
you
the
are
billionaires.
generalizing, right?
Well, if you're talking about
Are you?
society, then you have to come at it from a sociological end. So sure, technically, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I would say that it's true that all Republicans are like survival of the fittest, because this is like a 7-8 thing. But I know a ton of people on the spectrum of like want to be competent who, this is the way I see it. I'll be as competent as possible, and I help you fuckers become competent so that you don't die. And then the people who like none of us can help, they have too low of an IQ, they just are generally disenfranchised, which are not all of you who are pretending to be. Some of them are like I'd say you, who are pretending that it's unfair
Well,
so that you
I feel like
don't
yeah,
easily.
I
You have
feel like
to
I
help
see our
people.
division.
Yeah,
I
I will help people like you become competent, but I'm not giving shit to people like you for free because I know what'll come of it. But people who are actually disenfranchised, I will help those people. That being said, I feel like we could like go back and forth forever, like, and for good reason. Like, it's a good conversation, but I want to
yeah,
like,
that's what I was saying though, because like yeah, like Loki was going through like political undertones, so we can definitely carry this on like at
yeah,
another point. But like yeah, somebody else should probably
yeah.
speak now.
Still an
Yeah.
interesting point though, and I enjoyed this. So yeah, Zapson, do you want to weigh in on any of this?
Yeah, so to try to frame it in a way that makes the question accessible again, quickly, John, it's safe to say the question is, if you don't want to be controlled, then why do you need to be noticed? Or in other words, if you don't want to be controlled, then why do you crave authority which would make you noticed? Is that a fair way to phrase the question, John?
Yeah, close enough. Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can go with that. Close enough. Yeah.
Mm,
Zapson?
yeah. I've never taught people for the sake of getting noticed. I feel like that's the slow key projection on your part, John. When I teach people, I have the intention of making things easier for myself primarily. And it
Mm.
just so happens that making everything easier for other people is a way to do that, right? Now, I think it's interesting that you're asking for equality in regards to this political situation related to capitalism. To me, to argue that you're equally competent whilst begging for equality is basically saying that you're competent from an inferior position. So it's self-defeating, right? That's at least the way that I look at it. Now, maybe you see eight as hardworking because you don't want to work hard. But for me personally, the hardest thing about working in terms of helping other people, it's the bullshit that comes with trying to teach people not working. That's the hardest thing. Like trying to relay and convey certain pieces of information that just can't be grasped whilst being the only intellectual that's interested in grasping the concept, really. Keeping in mind the other individual might be held back by his own psychological dispositions. That's infuriating to me. I rather not participate in the act, but I've come to the conclusion that it's logically necessary to sustain your environment if you want to sustain off of it.
Okay, can I respond to that?
Yeah, respond to that, and then
Okay,
I'll
yeah.
shift over to Shane.
Yeah, I think I see the confusion. It's not necessarily like arguing from like a point of like, oh my gosh, I'm at an inferior position, so I want everyone to be like brought in the same level. I think in a very like communist ideology or very like socialist like sort of like ordeal, it's not necessarily that I think that like everybody has to be the same, but I think that like, well, like in my point of view, at least politically or morally, I don't know. So I acknowledge that it's not objective, but at least like I'm just saying that like I think it is a human right that we should be able to live in a world where everyone can sustain, at least to like a certain extent, like what their definition of like competence sort of is. So it's like if somebody hypothetically did want to exist in a life where they just wanted to like abuse drugs, and I guess like that's how anarchy I am, like in that sort of sense. Like if they're not bothering anybody, then I feel like there shouldn't be a pressure to like, because like here's the thing. I am arguing that like society should be brought together, but I feel like this is the straw man that a lot of people have towards like these left-leaning positions, like, oh, if you're a communist, oh, if you're like a socialist, like you're saying that like everybody essentially has to be the same. Like that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, for example, that like there should be no issue that if a person just wanted to like live their life and like like basically all I'm trying to say is that like everybody should be able to sustain themselves regardless of like what they want to do. So that's why I'm saying that like health inequality is a problem. I'm not against you guys trying to like climb up like social hierarchies and like like ladders and like stuff like that. All I'm saying is that your desire to do that should not conflict with anyone else's desire to hypothetically, oh, I just want to play Fortnite all day. I just want to read philosophy all day. Like I understand that like my philosophy degree is useless and it doesn't necessarily like contribute to like society. Like my ideal society is that like we can all live lives where even if you think what I'm doing is useless, there is a corner where it can exist and there is a corner where what you want to do can exist. So I'm not trying to say that everybody should be the same or everybody should be like brought to like the same level. I'm just saying I think that's a personal straw man to these ideas, but yeah, I'll just end it there.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll shift over to Shane if you have a negative question. I just want to posit. I think that 8 would lean towards conservatism because the focus would be on holding other people responsible, which is a conservative lens. I think 7 would lean towards leftism because the idea of freedom seems the freedom in terms of just let everybody do what they want and be as they are is a leftist lens of things. So it makes sense that we're having this political dichotomy, and we can return to it after we go through this like scheduled programming. Shane, do you have a question, a challenging negative question for the 8s? Have you thought of one?
Kinda. Okay, so it's a very simple question. It's not nothing too crazy. It's just like, how do y'all? Maybe this is more of I don't know if this is just an eights question or not. But when I think of eights, it seems that y'all really focus on like directness so far. Um, I seen it a little bit in the conversation that just happened between Angelo and John, and it's like, wow, like not in a bad way, but it just comes off very direct the way Angelo talks. And maybe this is just an agreeable thing because I feel a lot more cautious. And I feel like when I hear how me and John talks, it feels like almost kind of like thinking in real time. Whereas like when an eight talks, it's very like direct and right there, like. So I'm like, this is gonna it's gonna sound weird, but how do you decipher who you're direct with and who you're not? Maybe you're just always direct, but it feels weird to me because I'm like recognizing people at different levels of who to be cautious with and who not to be, and it seems like that's just not a thing for you. It's like no filter, straight to the point. I'm gonna be honest with the world and let it go, which is good. It's not bad in and of itself. It's just weird to me. It's foreign in concept, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think it's based on who I think is bullshitting. Like in context of this conversation, I would be more prone to be extremely direct with John because it's such low-hanging fruit to point out how not thought out any of these sentences are. Versus with you, I feel like you would actually think about it. And if you aren't really thinking about it, you're good at making it seem like you're being genuine. So with you, I'd be more like, okay, let me understand, but I'd still point out the discrepancies and the logic. At the same time, I do admire your ability to be tact with disagreements as well. So there's like a flip side to everything. But for me, if somebody's bullshitting and it's clearly bullshit, which I'm not saying it's bad intent, like John's just like doing his thing, but yeah, if somebody's bullshit, like if in a 1 minute sentence there's like 57 bits of bullshit, like yeah, I can't go on not calling that shit out. So it just depends on how I perceive the level of genuineness and actually thinking about what a person's belief system is. Does that make sense? That's what I
Zapson, do
say.
you feel the same? Because look, we come from debate spaces. Like I know you from debating. Do you feel like, and we were just talking about this earlier, where I was like, I distrust people or something like that, and then you were just saying like, I can't deal with stupid people, and I'm like, oh, this feels direct, even that. So do you resonate kind of with what Angela said, or?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, obviously everyone wants to take the best approach to relay information. It's going to be subject dependent. So definitely going to be taking that into consideration if trying to achieve information from A to B, right? But to advocate for somebody's ego in the process of doing so is to potentially affirm their delusion that's preventing them from reaching the conclusion in the first place as well. So sometimes I'll directly deal with the ego instead. If I can see that there's an issue that you have with coming to a certain conclusion and it's a result of your deluded ego, then yeah. Like I'll give you an obvious example. This is the one I usually go to. Woman walks into the live or the debate room and says men ain't shit. Like you can immediately tell what their experience with men has been like, and the conclusion that all men are shit is obviously just an overgeneralization. So if you don't want to break it down, chances are you got to work on some shit. And 9 times out of 10, when it comes to relaying information, it's to do with somebody's self-image getting in the way rather than the information trying to be relayed not being relayed efficiently enough. Morons.
If I can like add to the butt end of that, because I feel like giving an example was a good idea. Like earlier, something that John said. John, you said we. Who the fuck is we? Should. What the fuck do you mean by should? Be able. What the fuck do you mean be able? To live in a world where everyone. Who the fuck is everyone? Can sustain. What the fuck do you mean by sustain? Like every one of those words is either an overgeneralization or a nominalization that could mean 100 different things. And being an expert, literally an expert on brainwashing and hypnosis, not nowhere close to like a Chase Hughes, right? Still being an expert on this, like if you were to take a class in brainwashing and hypnosis, they would teach you how to talk like John because there's no actual reason what he's saying. So none of us can say that we're correct. Nobody has the right to like, say that I know the truth, but we are entitled to follow a process that gets to the truth. And if you're not even following the correct process to attempt to get to the truth, then like, what are you doing? Or maybe it's just not a priority to you and you're just, shooting
I
And
shit.
that
mean,
feels because even that felt like so different. Go ahead, John. I know John was the rebuttal, but
well, I mean, yeah, but I feel like to me, like that's like sort of like a cop out, especially if you're talking like about like a large like societal thing though, because like obviously I can't list each and every single like individual because like to me it's like I get what you're saying. I feel like I really do get what you're saying, but I feel like I don't know if you necessarily understand it from like my point of view. So you don't have to agree with me, but at least like I hope you can get like the schematic of like what I'm thinking because like to me more or less that sounds like if I was arguing with somebody and they said like, "Oh, the KKK doesn't exist, so you never have to worry about like white supremacy." And I'm just like, it clearly does. And I could list like a bunch of like white supremacist groups, and they're like, but okay, here's the thing, I'm not going to be able to list like every single member in that organization. So I'm more or less going to say, like I can say they, as in like the white supremacists. And if you ask me, oh, who's the white supremacist? I'm just like, I don't know their individual
Yeah,
names, but I think
you
like you
never
can
just
kind of fill in the blanks and
lobotomy.
know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, but that's not how things work. You don't just get to say like, I mean, you can, right? But it doesn't make any fucking sense to go, well, you guys know what I mean. We don't. There's no meaning behind what you're saying, and
Yeah,
that's
okay.
why I'm
I want.
taking
Oh yeah, I
exception
want to.
to it.
I want to bring this up because I think like I'm a. It's been debated whether or not I'm actually like an INTP or not. So, but if anything, I've still like struggled with like FE or something. I feel like maybe Shane can even like relate to me like in this regard because I think the issue that I have with like a lot of eights is that like the mindset is so individualistic that I feel like you guys have a hard time comprehending that just because you can talk about other people or speak about other people, it's not even necessarily that I'm like vouching for every single person or trying to bring everybody to like the same level. That's why I even brought up earlier that like the straw man that I see with a bunch of like leftist ideals is that like, oh, you're trying to say that like everybody should be like the exact same person. And I'm just like, no, quite the opposite. I'm still talking about collective ideas, but I'm saying that like collectively, for example, yes, I should be able to exist reading philosophy books, even if like in our current state, I don't have a philosophy degree, but let's just say I did. My philosophy degree is like inherently sort of like useless. So like, do you see what I'm saying, Shane? Because I think like it kind of goes back to the whole like, oh, there's like a blunt, there's like a directness because like yeah, I've noticed that you're saying that like what in
Shane,
particular are you
do you know
saying?
how to take
So
what John's
I don't
saying
know if I
and
resonate with that,
relay it?
but
Like,
we're saying.
do you know how to take what John is saying and relay it? Like, because
why?
I'm
No.
trying to understand you, John. I just
Can you wait? Hold on, Jack. Can you say that one more time? Kind of break that down.
he
Which
doesn't
part of
even
that do
know
you
what
think
you're
I'm related
saying.
to? Yeah. No, because I'm getting lost in I think the verbiage, and this happens I think sometimes when me and John talk. But I'm curious, John. One more time. What are you trying to say that I may understand, and maybe I can convey it better?
Because you mentioned earlier that like your contention with eights or like your negative content like a negative question towards eights was like there's just like too much bluntness, right? Or there's just like a like this like directness. You mentioned that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like in a roundabout way, I think like because of that, they struggle to understand these like collective ideas that like I'm talking about, at least in terms of like more like leftist sort of like ideals, because it's like if I say things like, oh my gosh, the billionaires shouldn't be like oppressing us, they'll be saying some shit like, oh, but like who's they or something like that, or like if I mention they in terms of like
I
billionaires, I can't list specific billionaires, obviously,
No, but
but it's
yeah,
just like
but I don't think that's the question to asking you. Yeah, I think this is definitely like the sense of the miscommunication because like when you say when you say billionaires, you're mainly talking about the elite, and when you say elite, all you're referring to is like the top owners of wealth you
oh yeah,
feel
because
are
yeah,
in
'cause, like
charge of how that wealth is distributed to people. And so then for you can
mhm.
never really know who is talented and who is not because it's not about the talent, it's not about the goal, it's not about any stuff. It's only about the wealth. If everything is controlled by the wealth, then things aren't honest. It is not natural. The hierarchy doesn't exist naturally. Unless you want to say the natural hierarchy is tied to money somehow, but we would say people exist independently of money. So then it couldn't be or whatever. Like you don't go to Starbucks because it's the best thing in the world. You go to Starbucks because there's 50 million of them around the world. That's what you're trying to say. And I understand that. But I also think Angelo does too. He's just saying when you say it, and I would somewhat kind of agree with Angelo on this to some degree, there is a sense of vagueness to this. This has always
I
happened
don't
with
think
kind of
so.
like elitism speech or like saying like it's us versus the elite. I know you don't see that there's not a vagueness to it. The issue is that there necessarily is because like if
But
billionaires
it
tomorrow.
can't it can't be personalized though. Like that's the issue. Because like if you're talking about like class struggle, I can only route it in a way where it's like I have to identify what more or less everybody can relate to, and I think I can safely say most people cannot relate to having $1 billion in their bank account or
No, of
being
course,
able to
but it's
expense
just
like.
the idea. Yeah. The idea here is that the
But I'm saying that
thinker.
like the eight framing. I'm saying that like the eight framing though, because I feel like you might necessarily disagree with me on like a political
Well,
lens. I'm talking like purely about like the enneagram sense, because I feel like when Angelo shows his contentions to me towards like these ideas, like he's trying to make it personal because like his mindset, his like eight point of view is trying to frame it in
uh,
a sense of like, okay,
okay,
what can
Angelo,
I
do you
do to
understand
play
that
it
question
through?
But
though? What are you saying
we're
to me?
not there yet. Here's the thing: is like we don't even we didn't cross that bridge yet. Now, when you asked me like how I'm gonna be direct with somebody, like Shane, you seen immediately. Like this is such a perfect example of what I'm talking about. You said, well, you are kind of being vague, and then you started to break down what he was saying. Now that being said, I am more prompt to take what, in this context, by the way, I am more prompt to take what Shane is saying more seriously, give him credit, and go, okay, like Shane is honestly thinking these things out. Therefore, I'm going to like look at his perspective, break this down, and see if there might be something there that he understands or a perspective that helps him that I don't have that could help me understand a part of the world that like I'm not getting. Versus, John, you are de facto speaking in hypnotic language, and then you're saying, well, I have to speak vaguely and hypnotically and not be precise. And I mean,
Well, it's like yes,
it
it's
does,
like it's like yes and no, because I feel like I'm not trying to be vague. I have like a specific point, but like again, like it's all
you
about
are
like
vague.
I think it would
but
just be
like
wait. I would argue this is just a fixing your verbiage thing. The same way that I was able to say what you're talking about is like, um, even saying billionaires is kind of a problem language, which isn't bad because the point of what you're saying is just the holders of wealth. The majority holders of wealth and how that wealth is distributed destroys the sense of natural hierarchy. So we never really get to see who's good in anything, and we never know any of this stuff. That's what you're really trying to articulate. Like the Starbucks analogy I gave, where it's like you're most likely going to go to Starbucks instead of a local coffee shop because there's 50 million Starbucks and stuff like that. That's what you're trying to communicate. So I would just argue you got to use better language, John, because when you're saying
well, yeah,
like
okay, like
the
I just
billionaires
like
and they're running us and da 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 da, I'm just like, well, hold on. There's a lot of connotations with this to
you're
where we
giving
have to break
John
it
too
down.
much credit because you've thought these things. I
Hey
don't know
Shane,
if
no, you
John has
get me.
thought.
You do get me, Shane. I think you're just trying to like make peace like in the middle here. Not trying to agree with me or him, but I'm just like I think like you get
Being
what I'm
me,
saying. But also like
he's being reasonable.
the
You're
hypnotic
not being
language thing, the
reasonable.
hypnotic language thing, I don't get because I'm just like, is that almost like spiritual in a sense, or like what do you mean by like it's like this is
No,
my
no,
turn
no,
now? What
no,
do
no.
you
We're
mean?
just saying that
Well,
like the language
you
itself is like there's implications of when you say the billionaires are running things. That might not just mean like you're talking about freaking if my mom won the lottery tomorrow and had
Are
$1
you
billion,
saying I sound like
right?
decent
She
enough?
not
Are
running
you saying
shit. You know what I
Let
mean?
let
are you
Zapson
saying I sound like
interject. Let Zapson
Yeah,
interject.
sorry,
I see
sorry.
him raising his
Go
hand.
ahead, Zapson. I wanna.
Riddle me this, right? In the scenario where you just want to do whatever it is that you want to do, and I'll use the example that you use, play Fortnite, who pays for the energy to fund your Fortnite playing? Because that's what I'm not thinking about in this almost communist society where you're not agreeing with capitalism. If we broke down the hierarchy and then said, okay, guys, go about your business, do what you want, the hierarchy would be built up again because you'd find individuals that don't mind hard working, as you put it, or trying hard, and they'd achieve certain things. They might even be more ambitious and their goals entail resources, right? How would you go about getting those resources if you're not willing to work hard for them, right? And I can appreciate that people work hard or feel like they work hard to no result, but I think that's actually just them being ignorant and attempting to work hard incorrectly, because making money, well, first and foremost, doesn't exist. It's taking money. It's a transaction, right? So you're actually failing to convince people to give you their money, right? So you're failing to be convincing if you're unable to make money. That's the bottom line of things. All transactions are through product or service. So if you're not willing to advocate the product or service in order to get what you're requesting, I don't see how we can barter, how we can trade, how we can even have a society because there's no basis or incentive to function off of. Like if you gave everyone all of the
Completely,
wealth
yeah,
that's accumulated,
I,
let's say the wealth isn't accumulated and isn't hoarded by a certain demographic of individuals, right? And it's evenly spread out. You ever seen somebody go on creative mode in Minecraft? They like
sure.
destroy everything after an hour. You start getting buckets of lava and stuff like that. Or when you play GTA and you get all the cheats and stuff. If you enable ignorant people, you're going to have discord. So it's kind of like is serving two purposes. Capitalism. You have the individuals that are willing to work hard, are going to work hard, and there'll be benefits from it. And then you have the individuals that aren't working hard. They're not going to be dragged along by everyone that is working hard. Even in
Yeah.
communism, you have to work. Like you can't just sit there and leech off the community. You have to go to work. Like if in all honesty, you would go into a concentration camp, John.
Yeah. Okay.
I
So
mean, not
John,
really.
John,
Like,
succinct final response here, John, and then I'm going to shift it back to Enneagram. Go ahead and say your final piece on this capitalism point, and then on the articulation point, if you have anything left to say, and then I'm going to shift it back.
yeah, I've heard this too, and like I'm not trying to sound condescending when I say this, but I'm just like, yeah, you're not the first person that's told me that, like, oh, but if there's no incentive with like money, then how are we gonna reach like creativity, like da 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 da. Like, I'm willing to send you a video that I think like explains it pretty well. Or I'll just say this because I know people are gonna listen to it. I like Nicholas Black. I think like that's the YouTuber's like his video, why I'm a communist, or I don't know, just search Nicholas Black and like communist, like yeah, you'll find it. And the other thing that I also like wanted to like respond to, and yeah, you don't have to respond to this because obviously like this is like my last and like sort of like final point, because we exist in this like technological age. And I know maybe you might rebuttal if you're one of those people that are like, oh my gosh, robots are going to take over the world, and that like that would be like detrimental for like humankind. I do believe that there's actually quite a number of jobs that can be, like replaced with like technology and like AI. And that makes it clear about my position. I am not against the advancement of like technology and like AI or this or that. I think we should use technology to, like support like our advancements and stuff like that. Obviously this conversation can go on forever because like that's literally like its own like topic like in and of itself. But to just like end it all up, I think like my final point is that like people, because we live in this like delusional like capitalistic sort of system, like they're so like they exist in Stockholm syndrome, no offense. So like they will say things like, oh my gosh, how can we still have creativity if nobody's going to do this? But I'm just like, there are rebuttals to those things. Like I don't even know if you know what they are, but I'm just like, I'm willing to show them to you off time
It's
or
not. It's
whatever,
not.
like
It's
just
not
in our
about
post,
creativity. I can understand the
or
intrinsic.
just something happening, right? Because like you basically spoke about how like, oh, you still have to like work in a communism, but I'm saying that like work is fine, but I'm saying that work can be achieved in a sense where there doesn't have to be such an evident, for example, like in a capitalist system, such terrible distribution of wealth that there will be homeless people on the streets, there will be people that that can't afford healthcare, this or that. I know that's what I'm saying, that like, because everybody has this straw man that like, oh, okay, if you exist in a communist or socialist sort of like society, everybody has to be the same or nobody's going to do anything. Or it's like, no, like not everybody will, because like in a lot of people's minds, these ideas translate into we must all share the same suffering, and that's not what it is at all. But yeah, I'll just stop it there, I guess, because I'm just like, yeah, we'll just
Okay,
bring this back to topic.
Zapson, if you have a response to that, write it down in chat, and then I'll feel free to bring the discussion back to that later in the free roam. Um, let's shift it over. Eights. Negative questions for sevens. Zapson, I know that if you do have one of these, it'll come on the spot, so I'll shift it to Angela. Angela, what is a negative, challenging question you have for the sevens?
Okay, and this is for each of you individually, and I'll just ask it, and then like just see where it goes with you guys. But I'm gonna ask both of them first. John, question one: what are your thoughts on the idea that you actually care 10 times more than us, which is why you create a self-image of not caring? And then the second question: do you create disagreement to draw in friendships? There you go.
That'll be
The,
the neutral question. So let's just focus on the negative question first, John.
the negative question is, which one? I care more, or I create
How do
like
you feel
disagreement
about
for
the
friendship?
idea that you care 10 times more than the eights, and that's why you create your self-image?
Of not caring, like it's a compensatory belief system.
How do I
What are your
feel that I
thoughts?
care 10 times more than the eights? Like, when you say care, like trying to prove a point, like I actually care more about like
Like,
pushing my agenda. Something I mean?
like a good example of this would be the whole nihilism phase. Is like I don't care about anything. It's like, why do you care so much to prove that you don't care about anything, that you spent like years detail for detail defining exactly why you don't care? Doesn't seem to make any sense.
Well, I don't necessarily see it as like an agenda in that sense. I see it as like a natural sort of like reaction, because I think like I know there's a disproportionate amount of people that disagree with me, and there's probably only like a few people on this earth that would like hold certain philosophies that I have, like nihilism, for example. So it's like I don't know if it's necessarily anything about like caring. Maybe you disagree with this because you're asking this question, but I think to me it's like I don't think it's me. I see it as like this is my reaction to the world because I just don't get like everybody else. But I I don't know if it's about caring more. Maybe I don't entirely understand that, but I feel like I'm just like still naturally inclined to like
Like
disagree unless you want to push
nihilism,
for.
I mean, to add some definition to this question with nihilism, if I was to just like, just attempt to blanketly summarize what your point is, you're like nothing matters and you shouldn't care about anything. But then you expend all this mental energy
Well, I mean,
to prove
necessarily
as
not care
much
about
as you
anything.
can. Say that again.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that like it means that you don't necessarily have to care about anything. And I feel like that's because like that only comes from like the structured way, for example, that like living in a capitalist system like makes you say that. Because it's like I think the things that I care about don't matter technically at the end of it. We're all gonna die. And I think the things that other people care about don't
But
matter at the end
okay,
of it. Like they're also but it's
see,
like
this is what I
I
mean is like it's so hard to hear like so many sentences in a row when the very first sentence made absolutely no sense. You said like the things I care about, I don't really care about. Like,
no, I'm saying
how
I
do you
don't
not
I'm not saying
have
that I don't care about them. I'm saying that like the things that I care about they still don't matter. But I don't think that
they
means
don't
because
matter
it
to who?
doesn't matter that I can't care about it.
Do they not matter to? That like who else's brain did you live inside of to draw that conclusion, other than your own? Doesn't make any sense.
Well,
They don't matter to
I'm
who.
well, that's gonna turn into another kind of discussion, and I don't know if you necessarily want to go there because like then we're gonna start talking about like
I mean, no,
consciousness,
just
and it's
answer
like
the question.
like
Be like a
conversation about
one.
like
Like
well,
John, it could
because
just
like
be a one word answer. It doesn't matter to who. It's just a one word answer. Can you answer that or not? Yes or no? Like
it doesn't matter to I guess like determinism because determinism
who is
just
that?
threw in the perspectives that you have whether or not you believe in it or not.
So there's nobody that you're attributing that belief to. Just some placeholder that doesn't exist thinks that.
Well, okay,
You
because like I
know
don't know
that's
if you know
not
about this.
true.
Because I take a very like illusionist view of consciousness. So I feel like that's also the issue because like technically I don't even believe in subjective experiences technically. I think like you can watch a subjective experience, but you don't own that subjective experience. I think like I definitely own my subjective experience and everybody owns their subjective experience, but it's like when a projector is
This is
on.
interesting, John. I want to hear you out. I really do. But I'm not going to allow you to deflect the question over and over and over until we draw a conclusion, and then we can move
Yeah, I
on
really
together.
I don't think I'm deflecting. I don't think I'm deflecting because I feel like that like
You
that
are
question
deflecting.
is so like yeah,
Like
this
it
is a
doesn't
common
matter
pattern
to
of
who.
conversations. But
When
like
you say
yeah,
things don't matter,
I really
things
think I'm
don't matter to
deflecting though.
who. Okay, then who do things not matter to?
Biology, I guess. Well, because I'm saying that in the sense that like I didn't choose biology. So like if biology tells you that nothing matters, or if biology compels you to believe that there is something that like matters, then I guess like yeah, like I don't really know what that question means when you say like who said that because I'm just like we're all just made of atoms, we're all just made of particles, this or that. So it's just like technically I think it's arbitrary when you create like borders in a sense. I think like we have them for like our convenience, but I feel like if you're asking like the root of that
But,
question,
but
like
brother, you had
philosophically,
to
I yeah, like
create.
do not fundamentally understand.
Yeah, you had to create a border in order to have the thought process you just had. So we wouldn't even be here without definition. So like you're saying, you
It means
in
when you
your
say
words,
when I say create a border, and when you say create a border, I don't think I don't think we
build the
necessarily
wall.
believe that in the same way
Things do.
because you're talking about it as if like I am the source, and from like a deterministic
You are.
lens, yes, that's on the surface I am the
You are the
source, but
source
it's
of
like
your
I
belief
don't choose
system.
what the source is.
I think what it is, all right, like I'll just say my final conclusion on this and like add, I will hear you out if you want to add something. Again, it sounds like cope. You said, well, the things that I care about don't really matter. It sounds, but you refuse to like see, or maybe you don't refuse, but you don't see that both of those statements are coming from you. So like you care about it or you don't, which sounds like there's a conflict with you. But for you to even say I care about something to begin with, it just like completely disregards some concept of like
Yeah, I don't,
nihilism.
because like for me, like I don't think those definitions like contradict. Because I think like when you say you or when you say me, I think like on the surface that's just for like our our convenience and like creating some sort of like border. But I'm trying to say that like the creation of a border is an illusion, as if it came from you, and even the notion of you is a like a made up
Exactly.
concept like made up itself.
But you
So
just
if you so
utilize
if you
that to
so
make a
like so
belief
like if you go beyond it, I'm saying that like if you go beyond it in terms of like philosophically and like philosophy of mind and like consciousness, you can't really pinpoint you without trying to create some sort of like all-encompassing, or at least if you ask me to say all-encompassing sorts of thing, because you're trying to get me to explain one thing about an entire thing that I believe naturally falls in like a system. I believe that everything that I believe is just running off of like dominoes, but I didn't choose the dominoes that are falling down. So yes, there is a perception as if there is a me happening, but I am not that me. That me is just happening, and that sounds the same. I feel like to like us in simple definitions, but it's like really not.
But John, that's really convenient for you to say, well, there is no border of me. But then, in order for you to create this belief system in which nothing matters, you have to go, you literally said, the things that matter to me, and now you're creating fucking border, don't really matter. How are you going to separate you from that? Like, you can't have two contradicting things and have them
But
in the
I, no,
same belief.
but I don't think that's a contradiction though, because I feel like in order to experience you, you have to selectively like have the delusion that you're going to acknowledge that like there is a you, but to even separate from not having a
You already
you, it's like they have to coexist in a sense. So it's like I don't know if I'm trying to explain duality, but at least like all I'm trying to say though is that like if two contradicting ideas exist together, which is why I don't believe in the mind body problem. I don't believe that there's a separation between like consciousness and physical. I believe, okay, let me explain it like this. Have you ever heard of like neutral monism before?
I would say that, like, at this point in the conversation, because I'm going to hear you out for the rest of this conversation, but you do a lot of explaining, but you should probably spend like 30% more time trying to understand what the person you're talking to is saying, too. Like, that's very useful. You don't ask a lot of questions.
I do think I do, but I'm just like, okay, like can I explain neutral monism though?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm listening.
Because I think like, okay, like a lot of people talk about the mind body problem because like, oh my gosh, how do we make sense of like the physical and like the mental? But like if you took like a neutral monist sort of like perspective, it basically says that like there's a neutral substance between physicality, so like atoms and shit, versus like mental properties, or like I guess what some people might even call like the soul. And like I would compare it like this. I think that the material and the mental coexist together, and it doesn't have to be contradictory in the sense of like for example, it's all one house, right? But for example, your bedroom serves a different function from the bathroom. It serves a different function from like the living room, but they all coexist together. And I feel like the issue that I have with what you're saying to me, and I guess like a lot of people like in general, you're trying to make me commit to this idea as if like, okay, so you said that you care about this, even though you said it doesn't matter. So it's like you said that like a bathroom is a part of the house. So you must commit to the bathroom being in the house, but I'm saying that like that's not necessarily the case, because like it is so neutral that the bathroom and the living room coexist together. So when I say that nothing actually matters, even though that I care about it, it coexists. So when you ask me where is the me that I care about this, even though I said nothing matters, it
Yeah,
sounds
but
to me like
matters. Like, again, like you say, I care about it, but it doesn't matter. But the definition of like matter that you're trying to use is like you shouldn't care about, or it doesn't matter to care about, but you just said you care about it. Like, it's still not making any
yeah, but I'm saying,
sense.
but I'm saying that like that works together, because that thing has to be there to acknowledge that like you care about it, but to also know that it doesn't matter that you care about it. It has to
Well, if
coexist.
you're basically what you're doing is you're claiming omniscience. You're like, yo, all my beliefs, like the ring does not come from inside the house. Yes, it does. You're not gonna sit here and say any belief that isn't literally composed of your thoughts. So when I asked you like who does it not matter to, I'm trying to get you to see that you're right now you're creating this convenient belief system where you don't have to take accountability for the beliefs that you have that aren't adding up, but they're still coming from
Well,
you.
okay. I don't know if
Okay,
this is I don't know I don't know if
getting
this is
it,
like a better
getting it. Hold on, John.
analogy.
Getting it back to getting it back to Enneagram on this one. I just want to say, for any of these debates, if you guys want to get back to these, if there's a bookmark thought that you have, write it down in the side chat here so we can remember it and come back to it in free roam. John, uh, last response here, John. In summary, what are you confused about with the criticism? What are you incongruent to with this uh, skepticism of you?
Okay, I'll put it like this. I think like it doesn't make sense to me, because I think like under a determinist worldview, a lot of people like, 'cause I think like the mistake between like believing that like there's a you is like, when people talk about like, oh, uh what are we? Are we more nature or are we nurture? But I'm just like, deterministically, we are both. We are both the nature that contradicts our nurture, and we are both the nurture that contradicts our nature. So asking me to pinpoint where I am specifically, that's why I'm talking about like there's like a neutral substance. So I can say there are things that I care about, but what I care about ultimately does not matter because we fundamentally exist under a neutral substance of two contradictory ideas having to be put together. So I think that just because I care about something, it doesn't disprove the notion that nihilism is false and things still do not matter. And I'll just end it there.
Okay, so let's shift it and we can come back to that later. What is your challenging question for Shane, Angelo?
All right. So the challenging question here, and this is also for me to like understand how to interface with your personality too. As much as it is like kind of a little bit of a frustration and a confusion, like I also want like a genuine understanding of this. What makes you genuinely calm besides other people's feedback?
Um, that's a good question. What makes me calm besides other people's feedback? It's hard to answer. I guess just like other things that stimulate me, I guess. Like I don't really I feel like that's a hard question to answer. I'll tell you why it's hard though to answer. It's because everything I do, I think, gets in some way related to other people's feedback, right? So I was going to say music because I make music, as you know. And when I'm in that space of just like hyper stimulating, hyper focusing, I'm like, oh, this is fun. I'm locked in. I'm good. And then I play it back to myself what I just created. And I'm like, whoa, this is hard, bro. But it's so hard that I want to share it with someone. Give you another example. I just had a big financial issue. I've had a lot of those in my life. I definitely overspend and I do a lot of dumb stuff with money. Um, and then I have these like really heated conversations with my mother because she kind of helps me with my finances because her and my dad are really are well off with their finances. But at the end, she always like reminds me like, hey, I love you. You need to be safe to come to me with these things. Stop hiding them and stuff. And at the end of those conversations, I always feel this sense of relief. Um, and that those are like the calmest moments. The calmest moments I think about are the moments where I'm like not disappointing someone or I'm getting approved by someone. I would say the only thing that doesn't doesn't do that, and even then, I'm still going to say related to someone external to me, is just going to be God. It's going to be prayer. And I guess depending on how you fathom that, because it's related to a different being or whatever. But like whenever I get really, really, really comfortable talking to God, that's probably like the calmest. But it's gonna be like things like prayer, uh, sitting with my own thoughts. Like I like to sit with my own thoughts and think. I watch videos and then pause them and be like, what am I thinking about through this? Stuff like that. That stuff makes me calm. Um, but so much of it is yeah, just united to other people, which is scary to say, but honest.
Thank you. That's like a pretty good explanation. It sounds like there's one side of you that likes music and sharing it, and obviously like prayer, your love for God and sharing it. But maybe I discounted how much there is like a genuine like you actually like the song though. You actually enjoy the connection with God. I guess there was a part of me that felt like if I can just speak intuitively and not make any sense. Um there's times when I'm like, yo, I don't need to be in 100% rapport with you 24/7 all the time to enjoy your company. Like not just like be like the logical part, but like emotionally speaking, like if I'm having a bad day from X, Y, and Z, and like I don't respond to something that you say, like it's not always like sometimes it's just something that like maybe I'm going through or somebody else is going through. So there's a part of me that's like, can you enjoy yourself without the praise, validation, or like being in rapport with other people? I do think it's a good quality, and you're really good at being in rapport with people. It's just like, I guess I worry in my head, like, I don't want your dopamine to be controlled by, and there's the eight thing, right? I don't want your dopamine to be controlled by other people's responses. Like, you're cool enough, you have a good enough vibe that it's like, sometimes just like chill, enjoy yourself, and if the environment doesn't respond, it's just like whatever. Like I enjoy my prayer. I enjoy my own song. Does that make sense? Or like,
Yeah, no. I think that makes perfect sense. I resonate with that a lot. I think uh it's funny because this is also just my sense of dogging on myself because I think it's become difficult to hold true to my faith and hold true to other aspects of myself while being a hedonist. Like getting disciplined when it comes to music or faith or anything like that has become very, very difficult at a lot of times. So maybe I'm just dogging myself too hard because you're right to think of like, can I just enjoy my music without having to share it? I think there is this I think the desire to share it versus the action of sharing it are distinct, and I can have the desire while still just enjoying it, and it's been happening. There's definitely been times where I love if I make a banger in my head, like if I make a track that's a fire song, I'll keep playing that boy on loop to myself and being like, "This is he, I did it, bro." I like, but that's just like for me, you know what I mean?
are
And of course, I
you
want to
okay
share
with
it with the
me?
world. Oh, go
Are you
ahead, go
okay
ahead.
with me sharing a perspective? I feel like you're doing it right now.
What do you mean?
And obviously correct me if I'm wrong. This is intuition, bro. But that's what I mean is like mm, like you're enjoyable company. The only thing that could make you unenjoyable is if I'm sitting here in my head the entire time going, fuck, like I hope I give Shane the right response, or like he might feel like I'm upset and he'll have a dopamine crash. And then he'll start like looking for approval, which you won't get in that
Ah,
situation because and I'm like, it becomes a self-perpetuating loop where I'm like, yeah, I already enjoy your presence. Like, don't try to make it like, don't try to compensate or make it better. It's already good. But if you start compensating and trying to make it better, and you take away from the reason that like I already enjoy your presence, and then that loop starts going, and then it's like, yeah, we can find some things to agree on, and it's like, I don't need to agree with everything you say to enjoy your presence. Like, I can
sure.
just enjoy you for who you are. And
I
again, it
wonder, yeah,
probably sounds like,
no. That
yeah,
just
it
might be
probably
something I'm
sounds like
blind
a
to,
diss or
dude.
like a
Because as I'm
negative
talking,
thing.
I'm
Yeah,
go
it's
ahead.
not a
Sorry, I
diss
keep
or a
cutting you off. You can
negative
get to
thing.
it.
It's a genuine attempt to like connect without pushing too far or like setting something off from addressing it. But I'm glad I asked
Yeah.
that. My apologies for cutting you off.
No, you're fine. I was cutting you off too because I'm like there might be a blindness there because like as I was just sharing, or maybe I was qualifying and speaking. I don't know if that's qualification or just me getting enjoyment. Like you're right. We don't have to agree on everything. I think I'm more just trying to nuance what you're saying, and as I'm nuancing what you're saying, I'm enjoying myself because I'm talking about something about myself that I really like. But I'm not trying to, you know what I mean? So maybe I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Okay. Zapson, it's fine if you don't. Do you have a negative or challenging question for the sevens or for Shane and John individually or whatever?
Yeah, sure. I'll go for Shane first, just because I know John's itching to say something. But yeah. So, and I'm just gonna start with some follow-up questions just to confirm some things. You'd consider yourself hedonistic,
Mm.
and your joy is dependent on social factors.
More than often not, yeah.
So, do you feel like you feel joy?
Um, yeah. Like just a second ago when I was talking about like when I make music and I play that song to myself and I'm like doing it over and over again. I made a chorus the other day, bro, and I played that joint on repeat for a minute. It was just dancing in my bedroom, just having a moment with me in the song. And I'd say that's joyous. That's joy to me. I think and joy is I view joy in a very, very specific way because I think there's like happiness which comes and goes, and then joy is something you exist in. And so like um I'm not just happy when I'm at church talking to the homies. I'm joyous. I'm
Right.
really, really just like this is really me. Even when I'm like here, like talking to you guys, like this conversation brings me joy. I was enjoying thoroughly the back and forth between Angelo and John because I'm like I I can like see in there how you guys are thinking and talking and stuff like that, and maybe where I can try and find miscommunication, stuff like that. But I'm just like, bro, this is good. I'm happy. Like my homies are talking. Like that's just real to me. That just brings me joy.
I
So I
hear
would
it.
hope I feel joy if that's what joy is. So, yeah.
So, if let's say, for example, in the scenario where you made this chorus, right? and then somebody comes up to you and says, "Nah, I don't like it," is that going to take away the joy for you?
Uh, Nah, it depends. It can and it has before, but like that did happen. Like the song, I also put a verse on that song, and I finished the whole song. It was like, this is heat, bro. This is hard. And I played it for the homie, and he was like, bro, this verse is not it, bro. You shouldn't have rapped it this way. It should have sounded more like this. And it bummed me out, but I played it back and I'm like, nah, this is the way this is the way I would do it. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
this is how I would do it. And so like I felt joy in that. I was definitely bummed though. I don't know if it took away from the joy, but it definitely like stopped me from existing in it fully to a degree.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking if let's say for example, you know, you're in a situation where you're loving life, would you still love life if no one loved your way of living it?
Mm. I don't know. I'm leaning towards probably not, but I'm leaning towards that, and I have to be like very very cautious because I have a hammer that I like. Like I said, I beat myself up with this a lot because I know myself and I know the type of ways I behave. But sometimes I don't know if it's like real self awareness or if it's really just me getting comfortable dogging on myself. But I'm leaning towards no, mainly because uh I just think I don't have the confidence. I don't know if that's something rooted necessarily in me being a 7. I just don't think I personally have the confidence in myself
I mean,
on
it's
my own
definitely
merits
related
to
to.
do it.
I mean, it must definitely be related to why you don't like to be so hardworking. If you share parallels with John, anyways.
True. Well, and which is also very true. Yeah, I'm not dedicated, working, hardworking, and stuff like that. Those are deep, deep struggles of mine.
Mm.
Uh, staying consistent in the lane and in working and stuff. Even at my job, like I'll work hard one day and then the next 3 days be like, I hate this and just be lazy. So, but yeah, I don't really know. I'm probably leaning towards no, and I'm saddened by that. Like I would hope that I would be confident enough of myself to like, if nobody was living life the way I wanted to, or like living life with
Mm.
me in the way I'd like, or whatever, that I'd still be like joyous. But I don't know if I'm confident of myself to say yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you want this freedom, but your freedom is dependent on this validation. Like, why do you need so much pleasure to feel alive? And there's a
Yeah.
certain type of pleasure as well. And if you didn't have that pleasure, like, how can you call it joy if you can't sit still without it?
And this is, I'll tell you what, like this is like the acceptance part of that is really when it comes to other people, the relation to other people. When I first became religious, that was like kind of the whole idea, right? Was my two biggest struggles were acceptance issues and identity issues, and I was like, I can resolve both of these in my faith. I can be transformed and really reborn in a new way. But I ended up using those for the first majority part of my faith journey, as I just turned those into other ways to be accepted and other ways to identify, to where it was like it became dependent on the people. I was wearing a bunch of corny Christian t-shirts to like school and going up to like older people that I knew were probably Christian to fight for their acceptance, to like, oh, Shane's really mature for his age, or Shane's, and so like even the sense in which I think should have grounded me in a sense of independence and confidence, I used it as a tool instead of like being transformed by it, if that makes sense. So real
Mm.
battle, just a real battle.
Yeah, John, I see
Hey,
you're
man.
muted. Did you have an interjection you wanted to make, John, before we move to the last negative question?
Oh, nah, I'm good.
Okay, so
All right,
Zapson, what
so
is your challenging question from Mr. John?
yeah, so John made a statement, and I think the statement was things I care about. I'm going to say I because he was saying nobody really cares, but perspective wise, things I care about don't matter because we're all going to die. Was that the statement correct?
I mean, like partially, but it's not the entire reason that just because there are things I care about, those things have some sort of like meaning or they matter. That's my contention. I think you can care about things that still don't matter.
Right, but ultimately, death makes everything meaningless. Would be a phrase that you stand behind.
Sure, but I think even what's happening right now, yeah, it's still meaningless, but sure.
All right. So I guess my question to you is, if death makes everything meaningless, then why does that statement death makes everything meaningless, have so much meaning for you? Because
Well,
it's like
what do
you're
you mean
living
by?
by, because your
Well,
character is based off the statement, death makes everything meaningless. But to me, from my perspective, if death is your proof, then like isn't dying slowly through apathy just like a kind of contradiction for you? Because the way that I see it, by saying, you know, we all die, I feel like that's just your way of feeling safe in surrender. And if you're really at peace with impermanence, then why does the thought of commitment make you anxious in the first place? Because you don't like hard working.
well, I wouldn't say it necessarily makes me anxious, like commitment. I'm just saying that like I find it unnecessary. But I don't think that. Yeah, I still have like questions about like when you say that like that because we're gonna die or something like that must still be something of like meaning. I think like uh I would like you to expand upon that like with this in mind, because like when you say that has meaning, I don't really get it, because the way that like I understand death is that like there's gonna be like nothing afterwards. So if there's nothing afterwards, then I wouldn't really have an input about death. I only acknowledge death because I exist right now, and heading into death, everything will be meaningless. But then there's isn't really anything about a lack of experience that I can say for it to be attributed at this point in it having meaning. So I still don't really understand that.
All right, let me phrase it this way, right? Have you completely understood what life is?
Have I completely understood what life is?
Yeah,
Well, just like under the
no,
context that
no,
everything is meaningless,
no.
then I guess.
Answers no. Nobody knows exactly what life is, right? Nobody knows the meaning of life.
Well,
Is
well,
like you can
I
talk
mean,
about your perspective. No, John, nobody knows what life is. That's a fact. If I take the Socratic method and say, oh, what about this? What about this? Well, eventually we'll find something that you don't know. So the fact that you do know things and you don't
well, but
know
you
things.
But do you agree that no one can prove or disprove solipsism? So I think like there isn't a direct answer to like necessarily like no one understands life, because at least like under the context that
Don't even know what that is.
everything only exists, well, basically like Descartes, I think therefore I am. If everything exists in my mind and can only be perceived through me and through my own like bias or something, then like technically I would understand everything about life, because life would only be everything that I can understand. So under that context, yeah, I would completely understand life, because I only have what I have, and that would be life.
Right, but that's a flawed perspective of this thing that you're presupposing is life. I'm arguing that if you can't make an absolute claim on life, it's going to be very difficult to make an absolute claim on death. So, what are you going to do if, you know, when death comes along, you find out that's not the end? Like, what? How would you deal with that information?
Well,
Would you be pissed?
that's hard to answer unless you give like what would be after death. Like what do you mean by that?
Well, hey, you can check every spiritual scripture for their take on it, but every culture on the planet agrees that there's something after death.
But that's gonna be contextual then, so I feel like that doesn't really hold merit for me, because like if you say that like because like that could mean I don't know, I get reincarnated and I wouldn't even know about my past life. I could meet some denomination of the Christian God and maybe he's gonna be upset and like send me to hell. So it's just like I don't know, that kind of depends.
Well, let's assume that you at least participate in death and find out that it isn't non-existence like you were deeming it to be before we even get to reincarnation or hell or afterlife XYZ. You're just in the moment where you realize, oh shit, something is coming next. Another experience is not the non-experience that I thought was coming.
Well, I don't even know if that would be me then, because I feel like this is a contention that I give to like a lot of like religious people, because even they're like, oh, what if there's like something afterwards? But then I'm just like, so what would that be then? A soul? Because like would that indicate that like my physical body is like not all that there's? Because like death, as we understand it from like a natural like scientific perspective, is like, you know, the decaying of like the body or something. So it's like it's still hard for me to like wrap my mind around that question, because like then I would also ask not even necessarily what's after death, in what way would I be existing exactly? Because I only have comprehension of how I exist right now. And yeah, I don't believe in souls, so I'm just like, are you talking about souls? Because then I think like that could easily be debunked, because like nobody's proven a soul.
Yeah, I mean, well, it'd be very difficult to disprove anything that comes after your experience, right? Because you'd have to experience something in order to make a qualitative comment on it.
I
I
feel like
don't
it's
think it
just
matters
not.
so much what the experience afterwards is, But if you can play around with the idea of there is an experience and fill it in with what you're satisfied with, if you want to piss about a bunch of doctrines, that's fair enough. But I'm more so just trying to get you to play around with the idea that death is not non-existence as it might not be non-existence as you think it is, right? If you found out that, oh shit, there is something, whatever it is, how would that affect you?
So would it still be my, even if my physical body gets damaged here, maybe it gets repaired in another transition? Because like that would at least be close enough, maybe. Because then I feel like it still wouldn't take away from death. It would just be like a transition because like yeah, like death, at least scientifically and naturally, it would just be like the decaying of like the body. So I wouldn't necessarily even think that even if I died after this earth and then like I went to something else, even as like a human like physical like body still, then I think it wouldn't necessarily disprove that non-existence is a thing. It would just say that we were wrong about when non-existence starts. Then maybe that's close enough. But I don't really know if that would still be like an afterlife. Because at least like if I still existed in a physical form that I can still comprehend now, then I still wouldn't really think about it as like an afterlife. I would just think about it as like a different section of like the universe. So I
Yeah,
wouldn't.
but
I still wouldn't see it as after death.
if you die, right, and keep in mind, dying for you is like the quintessential intrinsic aspect of your reasoning, right? Death
But I don't
is
know if it's
non-exist. Death is non-existence, right? So if you die and then go to another existence, how can you even claim that non-existence is a thing?
But but like my question is like how would I know that's another existence? Because like it could just be I didn't actually die yet, and like that would still be like my contention. Because like even if I grant that okay, it doesn't have to be a soul, it can still be some kind of like physical body, but it's just like I don't even want to say like another realm. But, like it still feels like to me that can be connected to like this earth. Because if my physical body can still go there, then it must just be a place that is maybe different from how most things on this like earth are, but inevitably like it's still part of like the universe as we know it and not something that is outside of it or spiritual or some sort of like uh let's just say divine, so to speak.
Yeah,
Like
another place, another body, not really important. It would just be any experience. The fact that it's just not the experience that you're expecting, which is non-experience, right? That's the key. Like, and you know, again, I feel like
but
kind of
as far as
not
I know, I didn't
engaging
always
the
exist there.
question. So, like, again, assuming that you die, right? And then let's say you just die in your sleep, yeah? You pass out and you have this experience after death. It doesn't matter what it is. You're looking at your body, you're going through the astral, you end up in another one, you reincarnate as a fucking ant, right? But you basically got the gist of things is that there is no stop to my experience, right? So now all you've got is an infinity of supposed meaninglessness with no
Well,
death.
I mean, I would have to know within that like other like transition that like I actually did die then, because I think like at least like from like my presupposed like axiomatic beliefs about like death, like that just doesn't sound possible. So I think like I feel like it's not really something that like I comprehend. Somebody or whoever in that thing would have to explain to me that like okay, your life on Earth was finally over, and this is something after, because I'm gonna ask them like okay, prove it, because I still remember things that were before. So if it can still be, and this is why I think that like a lot of like religions are like made up, because like even though a lot of spiritual doctrines and a lot of like religion try to like denounce the existence of like speaking purely to the worldly, they still go on it based on like what's convenient for them. Like, oh, there's something more worldly than just what's going on, but oh my gosh, look at that sunset that is natural, it elicits some kind of like beauty. So like to me it's just like okay, so you get to pick and choose what's divine and what's more than worldly versus what is good enough for the worldly. So even if that happened, I would still need somebody to prove that. Like, I guess, like, okay, then, like, if that happened, I would not believe I actually died then. Like, I would not believe I actually died.
Right. So if you experience what you think is death and you're still experiencing, the state that you would be in is I need answers.
But that wouldn't be death, though, because I feel like within death, I wouldn't be able to like ask that question. So somebody would
Well,
have to, or
we don't know
whatever
what
it is,
death
like,
is, right? In this
okay,
scenario, you've assumed that death is non-existence and then found out that it's not non-existence, right? So even now you're posing the question to me, what the fuck's
no, no,
going on?
but
I'm not the guy to
but
answer it
but
for
I'm
you.
asking. I'm asking how you can find that out though, because like that's what I'm having like a hard time comprehending. Because I feel like within like the layout that you've given, that's not something you can find out then, because like if there is still existence in some kind of form, then death did not actually occur.
Well, death as you know it didn't actually occur, yeah, because you're deeming death as cessation and non-existence, right? But when you're met with existence after death, of course you're going to have some questions. Now, I don't have the answer to the question. I could give you other people's answer to the question, but realistically, finding the answer to that question is going to be a lot of hard work. Are you now no longer going to be a nihilist in this situation and start advocating searching for meaning?
But
Yeah,
let's say before
so John,
I was like even born. Does that prove
last
that I was
response
never
here,
gonna
John.
exist though? Okay, but like let's say like before I was even
What
born,
was
does
my
that
question,
prove
by
that
the way? Just before you reply, just let me know that you heard my question.
what if there was something after Earth? That's how I understand it
If
anyway.
you find yourself in the experience of experiencing after death, would you then go search for meaning?
Would I then go search for meaning? I mean,
Right? Because you're not
I
searching
still
for meaning
wouldn't
in
think.
this life. You think everything's meaningless because of death. But in the situation where death happens, and then you're like, yo, why am I still experiencing? You want answers. You're now searching for meaning.
But I still think that infinite existence would also be equally meaningless.
Okay, is that your final response, John?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, still want to do free roam. So we're gonna like do like a speed run of this. I'm gonna have like I'm gonna have you guys pose. That was your negative question section. These are the general questions. I'm gonna have a timer to be arbitrary. We'll call it each person gets 2 minutes to answer the questions. And then if you guys want to expound in the free roam, we can do the free roam as long, as little, as not do it at all as you guys want after this. It's all contingent on you guys. But general questions. Okay, John, what is a general, non-negative, non-challenging, just inquisitive question you have for eights?
Um, I would ask like, because like like there's a lot of stuff about like mentorships with like eighths and like stuff like that, or is like not wanting to be like controlled. I guess like my question would be like, how do you know you're relaxed or you're fine? Because like I don't necessarily know if that always has to be contingent towards like working towards a goal or mentoring someone or like being helpful. It's like can you be, let's say, can is it possible for you to be calm without having to mentor or even like chase like a goal? Like, is that possible?
Okay,
Or would it
so
have to be intrinsically connected to those things?
so Angelo and Zapson, I'll give you guys, if you guys want the whole time, I'll give you guys 2 minutes apiece to answer the question. Basically, how do you guys know that you're okay to be relaxed? How do you know you're not being controlled and you can finally just chill the fuck out?
Okay, how do I know I'm not being controlled? I think I'd have to be omniscient to truly draw that conclusion. To be fair, I have no fucking clue. But first things first, you only get dopamine from goal orientation. So to me, it makes sense that if you don't set goals that you're not relaxed, which is why you turn to hedonism, because you're not relaxed. And you know them by their fruits. You know, if somebody does crack and I build a house, I'm gonna have way different outcomes, and I'm probably gonna be in a better mood than you are, regardless what mood you say you're in. So dopamine is created through goal orientation. That's the science. So that's one of the legs of how I know that. And secondarily, I think there is something to what you're saying about like being able to relax though, right? Because every spiritual book talks about giving up responsibility because it's bullshit and it creates a fucked up sub personality. But at the end of the day, being able to just relax, I do think there's something to that. However, I do not believe that you know what that is. I wouldn't consider you relaxed, and I don't think genuine relaxation would lead to never-ending hedonism because hedonism is filling in a hole. So I don't think it makes any sense from a certain perspective. But I still think there's something to what you're saying. I still think there's something there. I just don't think you know what it is. But it is a good ass question. So yeah, I relax because I get dopamine. And then beyond that, just relaxing to relax, I think that's a good thing too. But the way that you do it leads to hedonism, so I would never do it that way. Still an interesting question.
Remember,
That's
if
my
you guys want to
response.
return to clarify something that was challenged, write it down in the side chat or just remember it mentally and we can return to it. Zapson, how do you know when it's okay to relax?
How do I know when it's okay to relax? In all honesty, similar to what Angelo said, I don't. I don't even know when I'm relaxing, in all honesty. And like, I think this is part of knowing thyself, which is a long-winded, hard-working process that involves introspection. So I can sit there and say, okay, I'm not feeling as stressed out right now, and I could call that being relaxed. And then pondering about things, you could argue that you're not relaxing because you're in thought, right? Some people find it relaxing to think about things, on the other hand. But I think the most tranquil I've ever been has been in states of ego disillusion, when I've gone through ego death and I've reached like this profound state of tranquility. That's the most relaxed I've ever felt. And when I was in that state, literally I wasn't fussed about anything. Like I felt like it wasn't like I had the answers, but I felt like because I knew there were answers, there was no need to figure them out. You know?
Yeah.
So every time I think about being relaxed and tranquil, I think about that state of peace where I have absolutely no desires and I'm just content with being exactly as I am. So if it's not that, I don't think you can be relaxed. And I think all relaxation is an attempt to chase that state.
Yeah, so potential challenge for later, I guess you could say, like, is relaxation really a cope? And if that is, like, if attempting the relaxation is a cope against stress, how relaxing is it really?
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. Shane, do you have a general question for the eights?
I do. I hope this doesn't come off as a negative question because I mean it as a general question. That's like kind of my heart with it. Do you think being assertive ever gets misunderstood as being aggressive, or would you say that you are assertive and that it gets misconstrued as aggressive ever?
That's a good ass fucking question. Yeah, it can definitely be misconstrued as aggressiveness, and I also think there are times when I can be aggressive. So, two of those. And then the difference between aggressiveness and assertive is the difference between proactive and reactive. If you're proactive about something, then you don't have to be aggressive. Versus if you think about it like an energy spike, that's a reaction, and then like under a brain scan, that'll be perceived as aggression as well. So it can be misconstrued as aggression. It can be aggression, but the general difference is assertiveness is proactive. It doesn't have to be like an attack. And then aggressiveness is like reactive, where something gets bottled up and then there's like an explosion of it. At least that's my take on it.
Zapson, does being
Yeah.
assertive ever get misconstrued as being aggressive?
Um, I'd have to agree with the previous point. In situations where I'm told I'm being aggressive, it's usually because I'm being frustrated at the fact that people aren't understanding something. And I think that might be in relation to me being assertive, not so much because I'm being assertive, but because the things I'm being assertive about tickle somebody in the wrong kind of way, in relation back to their self-image and not being able to deal with whatever kind of refinement that they have to go through. And that usually causes me to be aggressive. So yeah, frustration, I guess. I think it's definitely a reactive thing. But there's also times where you can be assertive and it can be mistaken for aggression, which funnily enough makes me more aggressive. Like, you think I was being aggressive? No, I'll show you though, That's the way that I look at it.
Yeah. Okay, so I know Angelo has like specific questions for both of you two. Zapson, do you have a specific general question? Or do you have a specific question for both of them, or do you just have like a general question for the seven?
Yeah, I got a general question for everyone really. And I want it to be short answers ideally, and it's probably going to sound complex, but I believe there is a short answer, and no doubt that short answer can be elaborated on. But if you can satisfy my needs for a short answer and I feel like it's correct, I'll let you know. And then I'll let you elaborate. I mean, I'm going to let you elaborate anyways, but yeah. What is it? And this is addressed to everyone. I'd like everyone to answer this. What is it that gets anyone to believe anything?
I'll just go immediately. My first immediate intuition is confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias.
Good answer. That's a good answer.
Valid.
Um,
Oh, you can go
what
ahead.
is it that gets people to believe anything? I was gonna say Well, actually, Angela, you were gonna go. You go first then.
And I want to go. My answer.
Oh, John.
My
John can
answer
go
would
ahead.
be yeah. My answer would be the lack of any actual free will.
Okay.
All right. That's actually an interesting answer. It depends on what lens you look at it through. I think the lens that John just used makes sense too. But there's two lenses I would say that you can look at it from, which is how the mammalian brain deduces reasoning, which is like focus, authority, tribe, and emotion. So essentially, if an authority or the tribe agrees with it, or you just like feel that way, once you believe something, trying to change your belief causes cognitive dissonance, which can literally like put you in a psych ward. So once you believe something, the consistency of believing it is what makes you believe that thing. And then the last thing here is you can use things like language, but every type of person has a different structure of how they believe something. If I ask my grandma what's true, it's because it's on the fucking news. Like I could give her every single counterexample in the face of the fucking planet, prove it in front of her face, and she's just like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, that's just not true." The fucking news says it. It's immediately true to her, right? But some people are the opposite. Like me, I'm only gonna believe something. I'll believe something more if it comes from somebody that I believe tells the truth at any cost, and if I see it cross context. So there's several different ways that people deduce their belief system. Yeah, that's what I'll say. Everybody has a different way of deducing beliefs, and the mammalian brain is mostly affected by authority and the people around us. So, and what John said, I think is true, like to some degree, because nobody has free will. Is my take on that.
I think people actually, and maybe this is kind of similar to what Angela just said. I think people reason their beliefs. I just don't know how like how deep or how in depth they do. I think like people hear stuff and they're like, that makes sense to me. And you could say to some degree that's confirmation bias. You could say to some degree that's determinism. You could talk about the way the brain goes. But I think all of it's just like people believe stuff because it just makes sense to them. I know it sounds really, really simple. I'm not as in depth, I guess, when
Oh
it
yeah,
comes
you're
to the
saying
mind
Because
of
it,
it. But
cause it
yeah,
makes sense. Because it makes sense. That's
you're,
your
you're
yeah.
answer.
saying that
I
you're
I
saying
don't
that
think
you
it has to
believe.
make sense on this grandiose level. Just like it has to be like the most logically
It's
consistent thought.
resonant
I
to
think if it
them.
just makes sense to the individual. Yeah,
Oh,
if it
you said
resonates
it.
with them.
Would you say?
Resonance.
Would
That
you?
was the
So like,
word that I was going to say. My answer to the question would have been resonance as well.
I was gonna say, it's like, do you believe that like all beliefs are technically like a priori then? Because I feel like when you say that like people believe things just because like they believe in it, like they can't really reason out of what they are predisposed to believe. So like, yeah, that can be determinism, or even if we wanted to talk about like epistemology, like it's just an a priori belief. Like they can't function a belief without granting it to begin with. So technically, every belief is yeah, a
They
priori.
can reason out of it, but then the question is, does that reason come from free will?
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
The reason why I
So
like the word resonance is because I associate truth with correlating pieces of information, and the idea of pattern recognition. So let's say, for example, you watch a tree fall down and it doesn't make a sound, you're going to be in disbelief. You're going to be like, what the fuck? Why didn't that make a sound? That's a bit weird. I wasn't expecting that, you know? But in situations where shit adds up, you're like, yeah, that's believable. Like, angry woman assaulted her partner and then got a black eye because of it. Sounds believable, right? Adds up, checks out. That's how I'd look at what makes
On
people believe anything, whether it aligns with their current information set in the first place.
unlike a flip side for this too, just to give an interesting example. These are the two ones that I always use. Is like a bulimic person. You can tell a bulimic person, fucking literally, they weigh 20 pounds. You can be like, hey, pretty sure you can stop losing weight. But that bulimic person does what's called deletion, where they keep deleting how skinny they are, and when they look in a mirror, they're still fat. So there's an example of the brain is literally fucking looking at somebody who weighs 20 pounds, and they are still projecting over it the concept of being fat. So in that situation, evidence doesn't help. And then lastly, most singers that I know who are like incredible, or a good deal of them, they have stage fright. How the fuck does that make any sense? You're one of the best singers in the world. How do you have stage fright? Because they still believe that they're not a good singer and they still see the issues. So people can literally delete bits of information to stay consistent with their beliefs so that they don't have cognitive dissonance. So, yeah, everybody deduces belief generally differently. It's a weird subject,
Okay.
but interesting.
And then so we could just get into free roam and talk about anything. Angelo, what were the general, just like non-negative, just inquisitive questions you had for John and Shane?
Yeah. For everybody, what did you learn during this conversation that is either novel to you or you were not clear about before we had this conversation?
Nothing.
The way John talks, it's starting to hit me now.
What? No. I mean, okay, this is what I learned.
I'm coming up with a theory about you, bro. I'm not gonna lie. I love you. I'm coming up with a theory, and I feel
Oh,
like
shit, I'm
sometimes the
looking
way you
forward to
speak is like it's a projection of your philosophy into your own life, where it's like I have to do anything to not be bored. So then you communicate in these really like unnecessary ways to keep yourself stimulated and not bored, or something
unnecessary.
like that. Huh?
Unnecessary.
Unnecessary, like that's unnecessary for me to say to you, or unnecessary like it. Oh, I'm
Or,
saying the word unnecessary
or
to you.
when you when you
Yeah,
when
yeah,
you
yeah.
when you
No, no,
say
no,
when you
dude. You be
say
doing.
communicate
Somebody
in a
said
yeah
something
in
to
a
you, and then you went down to the deterministic thing, and I'm just like, is this a true sense of like thought? Like, are you as ADHD as me, where your like mind is going like, whoa, how does this relate to the philosophy I'm actually interested in, or is it just like this desperate of a need of chronic stimulation?
I mean, maybe both. Because I think like yeah, everyone says this, but I'm just like I do think that the patterns that my thoughts make are actually connected to everything that like we're talking about, and I'm just like I don't know if like a bit of narcissism might come out, but like I don't okay because like this one's kind of like difficult for me to answer as well because like personally I think my ADHD makes me look smart just as much as it makes me look stupid. So I don't know if you can relate to that because I feel like that's what it is, and it can cause a sense of doubt because like sometimes like when I'm talking to people and I say this or that, and they're just like, "Oh my gosh, John, you're going off topic, or you're saying things that are like irrelevant." I might think to myself like, "Yeah, like it makes me doubt." I'm just like, "Am I? Like, what if they're just stupid? Like, what if they're just so pea-brained that like they can't make these like obvious connections that like I'm doing?" But then also at the same time, I'm also be like, maybe I am just being extra, like or some shit like that. So it's like it's confusing.
Yeah, I would say as the host, the thing that I gathered from it is that eights like to be pointed. And most of the conversations and the contentious conversations, eights were holding the sevens to an axiom. If this, so this. Hold on, let me stop you. You're saying this. Let me hold you to this. I think that goes back to the goal orientation of the eights, knowing where you're going, holding to an axiom. Whereas the sevens like to play. So I think for the sevens, it's like you're challenging me, and I'm going to get to the end of the challenge so I can go back to play. Like for Shane, it's like um, I may be contingent on the feedback. That's interesting. I'm gonna hold to that, and I'm gonna go back to playing. And for John, it's like you're holding me to this, and arguably, I know this will be very arguable to you, John. Arguably, it's like let me get back to the conclusion that allows me the freedom to go do whatever the fuck. Because I'm not trying to be goal oriented. I'm not trying to be oriented to a specific thing. I'm trying to just do the thing that's enjoyable. Because, and on a philosophic level, John, I'm trying to do the thing that's enjoyable because doing the thing that's enjoyable makes the most sense to me as in John. It makes the most sense to me intellectually. It makes the most sense to me hedonistically. I want to get back to just playing. So I feel that throughout the podcast, the discrepancy of being pointed in a specific direction versus being more free associative and playful was very apparent. And that was the most prominent thing that I perceived throughout the podcast as the host and as a five.
Where I felt more collective with like I don't know, this would be like a misinterpretation like sort of thing. Maybe it's just because like we were talking about a bunch of like whole like political shit. But like this is also what I thought when we were like doing like the podcast. I don't know if you'd like relate with me like shit, but I think like I noticed how more like individualistic. This might be like a miscalculation, but like, I don't know. This is what I genuinely thought. How like individualistic being an eight might be more than a seven. Like despite the fact that like eights talk about like mentorship and like all this kind of stuff. Like we as like sevens, it's kind of like oh shit, it's like it's playful, sure, or it's more like encompassing in this sense. So I felt like when it was being driven to a point where like it had to be more pointed because like we were talking to like eights or some shit. I ironically actually felt like nah, bro, we need to bring people together. because of like said like fuck billionaires, etc., and all that kind of shit. But like, yeah, that's what I thought when we were doing this.
I would even disagree with you. It's funny I think the funniest version of that was hearing how the different ways that they communicated with me versus with you. I think they're really good at taking people at their own merits. Whereas like um something that I find very interesting, and maybe I don't know if this is an eights thing or not, but it seems like they're very much like approaching us as we are. Where in my brain, I struggle to do that. Like I say, it's something I want to do, but it's not something I'm very, very good at. I think a lot of people um, do struggle with, but I just found that fascinating. Definitely very individualist of like how do I communicate with these people on their own merits and stuff like that. So yeah.
And then before we get to free roam, Angelo, do you want to share the perceptions that you just put in the chat?
Yeah. The first thing with John, and John, I know you can fucking hate my guts for saying this.
Save it for free
But,
roam,
it's
John.
more, yeah. It's more clear to me that lack of self-awareness leads to hypnosis and being easily suggestible. Plus, the amount of
What?
hypnotic language that you use. Um, I would say that lack of self-awareness makes someone easy to brainwash. And so you believe your beliefs exist in a vacuum because though you say you do, you are genuinely unaware that all of your beliefs actually come from you. And but you try to use like false omniscient reasoning skills which are not that sharp, to be frank. And that being said, like, to wrap that up, you're easy to brainwash because you're completely not self-aware. Like, the beliefs are coming from inside the house, they're not out there. But on the flip side, I still think you have some wisdom worth exploring about not getting wrapped up into goals. Like, I really do think there is something you're seriously onto there. I'm just not good at excavating it. That's the first thing.
Bro,
With Shane, were you gonna say something?
I just want to say, bro said you're a wise fool. I mean, thanks, but fuck you. But thanks, but fuck you.
I mean, every wise person is a fool. So, Shane, on the flip side, I don't think you're as far away from being emotionally calm as I thought before, because it was like I do a lot of therapeutic work with friends, getting down like NLP and hypnosis, and it was really easy for to get you to see that like you gain possibly an unhealthy amount of dopamine from people's responses, but like I was kind of like yeah, I was kind of shocked that you were not, well, not super shocked, but it was relieving that you weren't super adverse to being aware of that. Like I like not just consciously, your unconscious mind was like, oh, that makes sense. And yeah, that was interesting. You're very fast at therapeutic change. And then you're also a master at communication, and it's just like beyond me. Like I can't put that in a box. The third thing here is sap. I used to think you were just gaining authority, which like you may be at some point. But your attempt at helping people is more genuine and personal than I thought before. Still not stronger than me. And then goal orientation requires not only competency but competent process. Requires not only competency but competent process of perception. So when Alan was saying like the eights, like we're like, no, I'm gonna hold you accountable for this. Because in order to set a goal, you have to be competent. But first, before you're competent, you have to be able to perceive competently. And because we set goals, we are literally more competent in perception because if you build a fucking shaky house, it's going to fall down. Therefore, we're not like it doesn't benefit me to build a house that's broken at the bottom. Whereas if you don't really have a goal and you don't give a fuck if the house falls down, you know, you can speak in hypnotic language that makes no fucking sense and just talk and talk and talk never ending sentences that don't make any sense. And like you don't think there's going to be any consequences for that because you're not setting any goals, so you don't have a proof process if what you're saying makes any sense or not. So it makes sense to me why the eights are literally better at perceiving is because we set goals and you will not reach a goal if you delude yourself and have delusions the entire time to that goal. You will not end up at the goal. So that was very interesting as well. I think the sevens understand something that we don't about um, the benefits of not being goal oriented all the time. It's an interesting conversation.
I'm gonna turn this for you associatively, but first, before I do, yes or no, does anybody here have anything left over that they even want to say in the free room? Yes or no?
Yes,
I can't think
John.
of anything.
Okay, hold on.
John,
But before we get there,
is there?
before we get there, um,
Yeah.
because I feel like with John, Angelo, Zapson, that's going to be like the meat of it. And I don't want to get Shane stopped away. Shane, is there anything left over that
Fair,
you just
fair
want to
enough.
point out in the free roam?
Not really. I think I just enjoyed the discussion so far, so no, not really though.
Okay, cool. So you guys go ahead, get at it. I'm gonna go pee. I'll be back in a couple of minutes. But yeah, talk your shit.
Okay. Is there
Wait, does this mean
anything?
it's still going
Is
on? Wait,
anything
I'm
that I
actually kind of.
said ring true to you, John, about the hypnosis and the lack of self-awareness?
Wait,
Is
before you say
anything
that,
that
what
you
were you
said?
saying, John?
Oh, when we say free roam, like, is the podcast still going, or are we just talking? I'm actually
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
we're
confused.
still going. We're just talking freely amongst ourselves now.
Oh, okay, okay, all right, just making sure. But you asked what, Angelo? You said about the
Yeah.
hypnotic whatever, like
Did any of that ring true to you? Give you any realizations, any like perspective? Particularly with the concept of like, and if you are correct, which again I don't know, man, but if you are correct about being a narcissist, then that doubles down on the concept of not being self-aware, which possibly doubles down on the concept of like if you're not self-aware, you're going to be easier to hypnotize because you don't understand how you function, which means you can't ignore somebody manipulating you necessarily, including just being brainwashed in general. Any thoughts
yeah,
on
I
that?
think that's fair, but I think for me it's more like a double-edged sword because I think like I've definitely had like a lot of these conversations with like a lot of people because like I've spoken a lot of times about how like I feel like yeah I don't really have a coherent sense of self and I feel like I'm just blank and I feel like maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not, but like my assessment towards like a lot of conversations that like I've had in my life, yeah, I've gotten this impression from a lot of people that they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, John must be really clueless because he's just like, I don't know, saying shit or yapping just to yap, whatever, like this or that. I feel like he can be easily manipulated. If that's true, then fine. Maybe I probably wouldn't even notice. But like at the same time,
Or no?
I also think that like it's been so off-putting to a lot of people that it's like John doesn't seem to have a clear sense of self. He doesn't seem to have goals. He doesn't seem to have like I don't know, like any like real values, quote unquote. So I also think, and that's why I'm saying it's like a double-edged sword. I also feel like I'm actually kind of harder to manipulate in that sense because usually a lot of times when people are like, manipulating other people, it's like they're holding something above you. And I get the sense with like some people that like they're actually intimidated if they feel like they can't hold something above me because it's like I perceive as more of a threat to them technically, even if I haven't even done anything, just because like it's natural to like have this like association where it's just like if something you can't read something properly, you can't like it doesn't seem predictable, it may or may not be a threat. So yeah, I think it's a double-edged sword personally.
That's an interesting take on it. I mean, it's just like it's just fucking. There's an inconsistency in there though, which is like, well, you say like, well, I'd be more difficult to manipulate, and I like the fact that you gave like credit to that thought. So if you're a narcissist, it's really weird seeing you have a sense of self awareness right now, which you definitely had for a few seconds. So that doesn't make any sense to me. But
I mean,
maybe
I'm always
everything in the world
trying.
is black and white, right? What's
I
that?
mean, I'm yeah, I'm always trying. So yeah, it's like blurry for me to tell because I think
Yeah,
like
I
I
give
can
you
have
credit
moments
for
where
that.
I feel like
Yeah.
I'm yeah. I can have moments where I feel like I have this like stronger clarity, like sometimes more than most, but then like other times I'll be like, why did I feel that way? Or I'm just like, oh wait, yeah, it's true. I'm still actually just like a blank sort of like empty state. So it's kind of just like
Mm.
I
You're not
like
blank.
technically I feel like you can say that for like everybody. I feel like I'm figuring it out as I go, but I think because
Yeah.
I'm a narcissist
Yeah.
or to just be like more cluster B, I just have to work a little bit harder than most people. I'll just say that.
Yeah, that's a really fair view. I'd like to say too that you're not a blank slate. Nobody's a blank slate. You're just not aware of the self. That doesn't mean you don't have a self. It just means that I don't know. Speaking intuitively,
I've heard this,
maybe
yeah.
yeah, like the
Yeah, that's like
subpersonality that you have is taking over the personality so much that like your eyes are right here, right? All of your behavior and the way you respond to things and what affects your processes of decision making are all the way back here. So if you can't see any of the way that you function, any of your values or what's actually creating your belief systems, then you can't necessarily mitigate against somebody doing anything to those because your eyes are right here where you can't be aware of how you're actually behaving.
Yeah,
That makes
that's pretty fair because I think like I like that Young introduced this idea of like the shadow because like I even made a video about it like some time ago where it's like I questioned whether or not cluster Bs actually have a shadow, or like when it comes to like the whole notion of like the self in general. That's like another like philosophical like whatever like discussion about like consciousness or whatever and stuff like that. But I think like I have always been fascinated with like the idea of like the shadow because like Young will say everybody has a shadow. There's something that's like not necessarily like brought up to like the surface, but cluster B people are like, oh, I don't really have a sense of self, so I'm just like, what is the shadow behind not having like a sense of self? So it's like it is an idea that like I've always thought about, or it's like maybe it's not true that not everyone has a shadow. Like maybe some people don't have shadows and other people have shadows. But me, like I don't know. That's going to depend on like your take or like whatever.
you
So
would
yeah,
actually
what
have
you
a
said
bigger
is someone has
shadow.
a shadow.
Yeah,
You
you
say that
you
again?
would technically have a larger shadow because you're not aware of any of this. And then the second thing is the shadow. I'm sure you know this too, but just throwing it in there for sake of conversation. The shadow is not just negative things. It's not just things that are outcasted by society that are negative. It's also positive things. For example, if you grow up in a household, you're a super good achiever. Like you have situations like me where like my stepdad or like fucking uncles or some shit, they're like threatened by my success. They will like try to make you feel bad about success. Now you're cutting off parts of you that want to do good for the world. So your shadow can have negative and positive qualities, which means ironically, like you could be cutting off amazing parts of yourself by not being aware of it. It could go either way. Interesting.
I never really thought
Interesting.
about that, to be fair, or at least like in the positive sort of like aspect, because I think like that's interesting because I think like obviously people talk about like a healthy amount of, I don't know if self-respect is the same way to put it, or like contentness. Because like for example, like would you say that like for example like the shadow of a lot of people who are like people pleasers? It's like okay, they look good on the surface because they're doing a lot of like nice things for like everybody and feel like that's how they define their identity. It's like, oh, I'm a nice person because I'm very helpful, but they never give themselves any credit, which would actually be a positive thing hypothetically in their shadow, where it's
Yeah,
just like this is good for me, this is like whatever. So like something like that.
I think
I've got
that
a question.
might be kind of what Shane does as well. Like, and you might be
Oh,
cutting
really?
off really good parts of yourself to stay congruent. Zap, add whatever. Also, guys, feel free to like make me self aware of anything as well, because I've been shining a spotlight on everybody else, and like I think it'd be fair to do the same in my direction to be helpful. So yeah,
Hmm.
what up?
I was gonna ask a question to John just to clarify. Did you say you feel like you have no sense of self?
Yeah, because I think like for me, like my sense of self feels like no different than like putting a hat or like a costume on. It's like you can understand the fun of somebody that wants to like dress up for Halloween. So I think like I see ego and I see personalities as like, oh, they're cool to try on, but I feel like they're never like actual like parts of me. Like once it's gone, it's just like, okay, why did I do that or whatever? I don't really care
Hmm.
anymore because I'm not focused about it anymore. So it's like, yeah, that's like blurred for me.
Having no sense of self. What is sense? What's sensing?
Um, I guess just psychological consistency, I guess. I think like when people talk about
Mm.
self or like self improvement, they're talking about like some sort of like psychological consistency. And I feel like not even necessarily in a negative way, because a lot of people will
Sense.
say that
The
like
word was
you have
sense.
a
The definition for sense.
the definition for sense,
Mm.
like detection, like in that context, I'm saying like detection,
So,
I
so,
guess.
so, so you're saying that you can't efficiently detect yourself.
Yeah. So I don't really know how to react when people say that like, oh, you have a self, but you're just not noticing it. I'm just like, because I admit that I have a hard time detecting, it could be true, but then also it's not out of the window for me that I just have no self at all. But I will be fair where I will be and say that like if that's the case, then like yeah, I can't prove that wrong either technically. So maybe I do have a self. It's just so hard to notice. But yeah,
I
it just
think
sounds the same to me either way.
your diagnosis of cluster B is self-aware narcissist in one breath, and then in the other breath, not very good at detecting myself.
Yeah, because I think like the issue with cluster B is that I think like our personhood, like everything sounds good in theory, or that's why like we struggle with like self-improvement and stuff, because like a lot of times it's like, yes, that would be nice in theory. And I feel like for a while we can even like convince ourselves or like play this part, or it's like it's the same thing as like when people put on like a certain like aesthetic, or they want to like, get in with like a certain clique. That might work for like as long as it does, but then at some point it's just like it comes toppling down, or like the questions will rise again, like why am I doing this? Do I really feel the need to do this? I don't. Well, why am I still doing it? Or yeah, all this kind of stuff. And it just keeps like looping, and all of these questions that basically just indicate some kind of identity crisis.
Mm. To add this there too, you actually do have a sense of self. Um, I don't want to call it a problem because I don't think of shit like that. Like you could have very well, like based off of what you told me about your environment, John, your personality setup is actually perfect for you to survive in the environment that you come from. So you do have a sense of self. The thing is, you have an extreme sense of self, and a sense of self is a mask. That's not a real self. What you have is an overinflated mask. Your real self is deeper than your mask, and your real self has resources that you could access that you're cutting off so that you can live inside of a sense of self instead of actually connect with yourself, which gives you way more resources than the sense of self that you have. So it's kind of like you live in your mask, and you've lived in your mask for so long that you're like, what would there be outside of this mask? And so you're cutting yourself off from your unconscious, essentially what you're doing.
Well, yeah, I've heard people say that like it sounds like it's something that's been like purposely done, and I don't know, maybe that's true. If like
Maybe
kind of
not
like what
on
you said,
purpose.
like after a while you kind of just like don't notice it. But I think like I don't know, because like I feel like I've had moments in my life where like so bad I really wanted to feel like a person. Like I like, or when I say like feel like a person, I'm talking about like authenticity. Yeah, I kind of forget, like basically not having a sense of self, i.e. like a mask or something. And it's like low-key, like I've had so many breakdowns just because of like how bad I wanted to be that. But then even after it was like all over, I it just didn't make sense to me, because like I've also had moments lots of times where it's just like, oh, people are so obsessed with persona, blah, blah. And I know that's not necessarily what you're saying. That's not necessarily what we're talking about, because like, I'm thinking we're obviously trying to like talk about something more with authenticity in terms of like self-perception and how we see the world, whatever, and like stuff like that. It's like I feel these things like all the time, but so it's like it should tell me that like yes, there is some like actual, if we're not going to say sense of self, or at least like a hidden
Mm.
actual personality with like personhood. But then it's just like it just stops. So I feel like even when I've had those like really like you could almost say like mental breakdowns, like mind shattering, like psychological, like terrible states of like discomfort, and then after it's done, like I will just not pick up anything from it anymore. I'm just like, why did I even feel the need to be like that in the first place? Or
Yeah.
just like, yeah. So it's like, yeah.
So I'm based off of what you're saying, I know you just well enough, like as far as your history, to actually give you a really good example of why that happens. Are you okay with me sharing that though? Because it goes into your personal history. Is that okay?
My personal history, like about what?
It's like family stuff. It's super crazy, but
Um, sure, yeah. I
all
mean,
right.
I've already made a lot of videos talking about like
Tell them
my
how
like
your
family.
parents were narcissists, John.
Well, all right. So let's think of it like this: the shadow, right? Again, let's think of it like this: you have a sense of self, and the shadow, which I think is a stupid fucking word. I basically think of the shadow as actually the self. Fuck Carl Jung. I don't care. Shadow is actually the self, and then there's like this part of you that, which is the sense of self. So for example, when I say that the shadow can contain good qualities, for example, in your household, if you were too empathetic, you might get your shit taken. If you're too nice to people, you might get shit thrown at you. If you're too forgiving, you might get taken advantage of. So what you have to do in this scenario is you have to cut off empathy to survive. You have to cut off being understanding to survive. And those are resources that you can no longer give to yourself anymore because you've cut them off and you can't give them to other people. But you could easily justify it as like, yeah, you guys may say all this empathy helps, but when I was at my house and I forgave my mom, she fucked me over again and threw a fucking shoe at me. So no, I don't want to call on that resource of being empathetic. And so the traumatized self cuts off bad and good resources so that you can self-preserve. So if you now, but that was a long time ago, and maybe it's now, I don't know. But now that you're older, you're more developed. Now you can actually have these resources to look back and engineer yourself a little bit more and give yourself permission to call on those resources that you didn't have. But you don't have to be stupid about it. You can still practice discernment, right? If you get around somebody who's trying to abuse you and they're taking advantage of the best parts of you, you can still give yourself permission to say, I'm not going to be overly empathetic to this psychopath trying to fuck me over. That would be terrible, right? But on the flip side, when you're going through it, you don't feel yourself enough, you don't have that amount of empathy, and you're alone, it's just you and you're safe. There's really no reason in that context to cut off your full self and all these resources that would be therapeutic and helpful for you to integrate into your personality. It's just like, practice discernment. You are the way that you are for a reason, right? Never forget what you learned. That's never the goal. But integrate what you learned into the fact that like you're not always in a household with a bunch of psychopathic narcissists trying to fuck you over. Sometimes you're just hanging out with people who care about you. Sometimes it's a mixed bag, and sometimes you're just by yourself. So, allow yourself to give yourself permission to cultivate those parts of you that you have to cut off sometimes. And then you'll start to feel your full self because you'll never truly know yourself. There's too much of it. But you can cultivate resources from yourself that will make you have a better experience. Makes sense?
Yeah, that's fair. Because I think like ironically, even if like I think like being by myself, like I think that makes sense. Like there's no reason that I should feel like any sort of like anxiety, whatever, something like that, because like there isn't even like an adamant threat. And maybe as a defense, like our psychology could be like, oh, it could happen at any moment. Prepare for like the next like whatever. So even in like your alone time, there's never like a sense of like peace. But I think like I have noticed one thing about myself though, or at the very least, like it's made me like question a lot because I think like I do desire connection or like a romantic partner specifically, but I've been going like on and off, admittedly, because like I told everybody that I was gonna fucking go like MGTOW, and you might even say, for example, that's like a trauma response, like, oh yeah, you want to give up on dating because like, oh my gosh, you don't want to be hurt by women, whatever. There's like I know people say that about like the MGTOW guys, but I've also convinced myself that like nope, they actually make a lot of good points because just like there just seems to be like no benefit even like dating like a woman or some shit. But like like I am admittedly being a bit incongruent. So maybe what you're saying actually like is true to a certain extent, and like there are things perhaps that like I'm trying to like hide or some shit. Because like I've started talking to this like random girl that I met on like TikTok again or whatever. And yeah, it's been flirty, it's been romantic, whatever, some shit. And it's like I'm confused because like I thought like yes, I was gonna go MGTOW. I was literally gonna give it up or like this or that. So I'm just like I don't know what I'm doing. Admittedly, not the healthiest person of choice because she is comorbid NPD and BPD, but like, yeah,
LOL.
I don't know.
Yeah, John, don't let a bunch of BPD people or a bunch of naive people confuse you. Like, practice discernment. The world is not black and white. People who've never been through anything want to force a view on you that you shouldn't be standoffish. But then people who are standoffish want to force a view on the peaceful people that they need to be at war all the time. Neither of those is true. The world is not black and white. Like, you know what you know for a reason. Practice discernment. Like, that's all I'm gonna say. Like, I think you're on the right path, in my opinion. But fuck with my opinion. I mean, anyways, yeah, is it good
No,
talk?
I appreciate I appreciate the input though, like I really do.
Yeah, it's cool hearing your perspective on this stuff too. I mean, I feel like that landed really well, but like that's for you to enjoy.
Like process, yeah.
Yeah, enjoyable.
Does anybody else have anything they want to posit in our final section?
Any racist comments? Anything? You guys have anything to? Because I've been fucking shooting shit out. You guys have anything?
Yeah.
Who wants to
you're aware
criticize
of?
Angelo?
Yeah,
Who wants to call
Me.
not
Angelo
Zapson.
the fuck out?
Not
Ah!
Zapson. Anybody but Zapson, bro.
That's okay if you're afraid. You scared?
I got nothing. I appreciated the
You
combo. I
scared to
think
hear
it
my
did well.
opinion? Is that it? You're not, are you? You're not scared. You're not afraid of
I am
anything.
until I remember who you are. Then it doesn't feel painful all over again.
Oh, it doesn't feel useful at all? How does it feel when I make a
No,
comment?
painful.
It feels painful. Damn. No pain, no gain, right?
Fair enough. Rip the fucking band-aid off, Zapson.
Yeah.
It's like
I
the glasses.
think-
Where did you get
think-
those?
I think that you rely too heavily on other people's perspectives, and it might have something to do with having your own discerned. So a way that you accommodate for your own perspective is by taking the perspective of others that have more authority of you than you, and then integrating it within your perspective. Most of the time, like earlier when I asked for a question on, oh hey, what's the answer to this, like what causes anyone to believe anything, obviously I asked that with the intentions of getting a short answer, and the long answer that you gave, no doubt, was a regurgitation of somebody else's systematic framework, right? So you gave me somebody else's answer. I would have preferred your answer. In fact, I think your answer, without using somebody else's perspective and framework and, reification, I think that would have been more appropriate than the answer that you gave. Somebody threw out the word resonance. Fucking loved that. That was brilliant. There's definitely a way for you to elaborate on things, and I know that you can elaborate infinitely, but I feel like you elaborate mostly because other people don't understand concepts. So if you can find a way to feel satisfied with your intuition and relay that intuition effectively to other people without having to rely on system XYZ, that would be fucking brilliant for your confidence. Because at the moment, I'll see you retreat to using other people's frameworks of understanding things. Not that it's always a bad thing, but if you're constantly going to rely on that, that entails that you're using somebody else's authority rather than garnishing your own. And I think you're very capable of making your own authority. Most of the time when you give me an opinion, especially when it's emotional, right, I feel like it's a credible opinion. Where most people, when they give me emotional opinions, I'm like, this dude's just projecting, or this dude is just, he's got some issues to work through. I know where the emotion's coming from, and it's not a place of intelligence. So if you
Bro,
could be
I
emotional
think
and
the reason
intelligent.
that Zap, I think the reason that I almost get more upset with you is because you have good intent, but you're wrong. And I'm like, it's so conflicting to want to like acknowledge how good intent you have, but then another part of me is like assertive and it's like incorrect. So
Mm.
it's such a fucking contradiction of
and it, and, it,
emotions,
and,
but
it, and can I point out, it's only ever the times where I'm speaking about particulars of you. I've yet to see you point out, nah, I disagree with that, Zapsin, when I'm speaking about something else.
yeah, I mean, I think it's a good point. I think the disagreement would be that I don't already understand the point. Let me like 30 seconds explain why. Use the word retreat. I'm not retreating, I'm advancing. You said
Mm-hmm.
other people's. I I said other people's, but you know, a lot of that answer was genuinely my answer. I said like this is how I believe things. I believe things when people tell the truth more. And I believe things when they're cross context. So that is literally me putting my belief in there.
Mm-hmm.
Trust intuition. I agree with that. So it's a good point. It's not novel to me, but it's still a good point. I gave my own answers with both, and then lastly, I'm not going to just give a subjective answer. I'm not going to just give an objective answer. I gave a subjective mixed with an objective answer, which basically means like I'm using my own mind to deduce things, but I'm using outside data and credible sources to back up what I'm saying. Because like I could just tell you what I think, or I could just tell
Mm-hmm.
you what other people think, or I could take a long time to figure out what I think and really break it down.
Mm-hmm.
Then I could take all these people, figure out what they think, and then I could put the outside world and the inside world together and have a more cohesive model that exists and makes sense across more contexts. So
Right.
I I use both.
And I hear that. I completely get that, right? But I feel like where it's, coming with, okay, I'm making these points and these credible sources, the most credible source in my eyes is you when we're talking about this shit, because I'm asking for your opinion. I see you as a credible character. When you
I
start mentioning
appreciate that,
Tom,
but
Dick, and
it's
Harry to push
yeah,
towards objectiveness, all you're doing is clumping like-minded perspectives. They're still subjective. So nobody can give an objective answer in totality, right?
yeah, that's
But
not true.
you can get closer towards objectivity. I just think it's interesting that your idea of getting closer towards objectivity is to do with authoritative figures. Whereas if you gave me an answer that came from the heart, I would read that it came from the heart, and that would hold more weight. than, in my opinion, some random dude that just has fear as his main motto.
It's
And
not
this
like
is why
a
I don't like
thought.
modern day psychiatry as well. I don't fuck with modern day psychiatry because of Freud and the whole negative way that he pushed all of psychiatry. So it's focused on
Yeah, be with
negativity.
me, bro. Be with me, bro. I know you have good intent, but you're doing what John did earlier, where like you're already saying something wrong the first sentence in. We don't need 8 more sentences.
All right, all
Like
right.
I'm not fair. Like I'm not getting these from authorities. I said I'm getting them from credible sources, and I'm not believing them just because they're from the credible sources. I'm gonna fact check those people too. Secondarily, yeah, a lot of things are objective, but think about this. If everything was only objective, we would have no need for science. Because what science is taking your internal belief, putting a lens on it externally, and then seeing how that works together. So I just want to make that clear, bro. I know that you have good intent. Like
Yeah, I don't have I don't have an issue with the scientific method. Uh, what I have an issue with is that you think that these methods are more, at least when you're speaking to me, right? Like I already see you as a credible character. All the credibility that I need when hearing something is there because it's coming from your mouth, right? And as you said correctly, all pieces of information are to be analyzed anyways. You've done so with these views, whether they're objective or not, whether they're coming from a professional character, fair enough, right? But I need you to play around with this idea that every time it comes to affirming your point, it's always from, well, not always, but it's often from
it's
this
from both.
perspective of the people that you're studying, which is perfectly fine. I don't have a problem with that. Obviously, study these guys, they're very good guys. You know, I'm not
Yeah,
saying that
it's not
information is not credible, but I just want you to think about why credifying yourself a go-to is immediately, oh well, here's this credible character that agrees with me, you know?
yeah. You're telling me what I was telling you earlier to trust your intuition. Like you can't always explain things externally, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. I guess I am repeating the exact same thing back to you, you know?
Yeah. So
And
it's
maybe this is like an eight thing as well. Who knows? But for
what
me, I feel like I've been in a position where people won't take my word for shit. So I'll try and be like, oh, well, look at this guy saying, look at this guy saying. Eventually, it's you can highlight all of these
But
pieces,
do
and
you see how
people
you're doing
won't.
that right now? You're literally doing that right now. I'll tell you what you're doing, and then tell me if I'm wrong too. Like, don't just obviously take it as
Mm, mm,
gospel.
mm.
But what you're doing is like you have good intent for people, and you are also an intuitive person, which means there's times in life where you've tried to help people and you had good intent, and you couldn't explain what you were doing, and maybe somewhere along the line someone was like, Zapson, why are you fucking everything up? And you're like, dude, I'm not trying to fuck everything up. I have good intent. So the only issue is like now, if I don't immediately agree with you, it feels like you feel like I'm also rejecting your good intent.
No, no,
Like,
no,
come
no,
on,
no, 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 no. You're more than welcome to disagree with my position. And in all honesty, all I'm trying to highlight is that, and again, you already know this, but I feel like I'm just going to clarify it. The thing that's going to make somebody believe something is not evidence. It's not evidence. I know it seems
for
like, oh,
some
well, evidence
people,
can really sway an individual. No, no, no. For everyone, it's never evidence that actually
that's not
makes
true.
people believe something. You might be the kind of character that will believe something and it was triggered by evidence, but it's never the evidence that causes it. It's resonance with the self, the information resonating with the self that causes something to be believable. All of this information set that you've got, basically, you'll be more. My idea that I've got right now is that I feel like you'll be more convincing in certain situations, only where evidence fails, if you rely more on your
Yeah,
not
but
even
I'm not trying to
intuition,
be
but
convincing. I'm not trying to be convincing. I'm just sharing my perspective. If I was trying to be convincing, I would figure out how you guys deduce belief, and then I would speak through that filter. I was just
yeah,
sharing my.
I'm just talking strictly on sales, really, you know, because
No, no,
I'm
no. You're what you're
keeping in
saying
the
is
back of my mind. This is like a priority, you know.
yeah. What you're saying is accurate to a degree, because like I think maybe even a year, 2 years ago, I would agree with what you're saying. I would say like you and I both know this, bro. Some people you give them all the data in the fucking world, and they're still like, yeah, it's not true. And I
Mm.
used to think that too. I'd be like, no, people listen to authority, or people listen to this, or X, Y, and Z. I actually found out that using information is a way to draw a conclusion. It's just it's not the only way that we use. So I mean, some people do use data. I don't, for sure, bro. Like I could get denied by 100 girls in a row, and I'm like, all these bitches love me. Literally, like
Yeah,
data
that's
does for me. Like, yeah, but if I see consistency through context, damn, that's true. And if I see like consistency, not from just an authority figure, but somebody I know who's willing to like say what's true, whether people like it or not, I'm more prompt to believe that source. So like, yeah, it could be a lot of different things. I mean, like, you still have a point though, which is like not everybody uses.
I feel like, and definitely I don't disagree with anything that you said. I just feel like the evidence, the actual information is like that at the most is the starting point, right? So you've got somebody, they're a certain kind of way, the character, you're trying to change them,
Okay,
you're giving them
Saxon.
a little
So,
instance.
so you're saying that you trust my opinion more than you trust the authorities that I source.
Oh yeah, I definitely trust you more than Chase Hughes. In fact, I've looked
Okay,
through
fair enough.
Chase Hughes' shit, and I'll be honest with you, I think he's just projecting fear. He might be doing so very well, and he's capable of manipulating people. I argue with the help of psychedelics is really not that fucking difficult. I'm confident I could trip sit somebody and turn John into an empath if I had mushrooms at my.
He already
He
is one.
recommends taking psychedelics. He's like, I think you would like him more than you think, but I don't really care about that. Basically, what you said is a self confession, which is a good thing, right? But all you're saying is that you'd be more prompt to believe me than a source, which that says something about how you deduce belief, which is okay. But I was just sharing how I deduce belief.
I'd be more inclined to believe your perspective on experience, which is always going to be a partial abstraction that's necessarily flawed. I'm more inclined to believe that because I know you better. Whereas if I don't know an individual well, I'll struggle to
But
believe their perspective because I don't know how they're discerning it, you know?
yeah, but on the flip side, somebody who doesn't know me that well, we haven't had a shit ton of conversations and gotten the weeds with stuff together. You know, some of those people, they might be like, "Who the fuck are you?" But then I say like Chase Hughes, and they're like, "Oh, you know Chase Hughes? Oh, Chase Hughes said that." So that's why I'm saying like my perspective is both.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's that kind of behavior, like, oh, this guy that I think's cool said that. Oh, now I believe muggle. You're appealing to authority. That's fallacious by nature. I'm not interested in anything like that. If you're the kind of guy, like if I can sit there and walk up to you and be like, oh, by the way, that person you idolize says that you should do this, so you should do it, and that makes you do it, moron. Like what the fuck? I'm not discussing
yeah.
with a
And,
person right
to
now.
add to this too, like it's not just, and I know I'm like cutting you off. I'm just trying to be precise with this, man. It's not because Chase Hughes said it. It's to me, it's because Chase Hughes. Like, there's so many reasons, but I'm just making it very brief here. Because Chase Hughes has $50 million of funding from the government into the research that he does, he's the number one brainwashing expert in the world, the number one hypnosis expert in the world. He made all the brainwashing and hypnosis materials for the FBI and the CIA, and I've taken his courses, and I've learned how to profile behavior.
Ooh,
And both of my hypnotists are trained by Chase Hughes, his NCI stuff. And so it's not just like I like Chase. Like there's a lot of reasons that to me point to the fact that like he knows what he's doing, not including the fact that I've taken the stuff that he teaches and I've taught it and I've experienced it in the field and I've made money off of it. So like there's a million legs on this table.
yeah, I hear it. I'm not doubting Chase Hughes' credibility. I'm just dealing with the facts of the matter that his information set is partial and finite. Right. So yeah, brilliant.
All
Made a bunch of money. Uh, he's doing really well. Authoritative figures regard him highly. This is great, right? But how much purpose does this serve when we're talking about truth? Because realistically, it's another particular that's partially true and necessarily flawed. So I have no problem saying, oh, yes, it's really credible. Here's all the evidence to show that it's credible, but it's still necessarily flawed. So if we're going to put it on a pedestal and prevent our own development, which I know you're not doing, not preventing your own development, right? But I'm just making the point to highlight and again take the time to say I think you're equally as credible
bro,
as any
like
of these
it's
people.
unfair to say that though. You're deleting context. again, like I've used his stuff personally and got results. I'm not just listening and chasing.
No, I get that, but it's because you've used it and you've gotten results, not because you've gotten results from his shit. Because if somebody else used it, they may not get results. So it's you. It's
You
always
know
you
how
doing the
fucking
work.
long it would have been if my whole answer was like every single thing I've ever learned from Chase Hughes that works in every context. That would take 40 minutes.
No, definitely. But as you explain that crap, you're going to reveal more things about yourself that Chase Hughes probably doesn't even cover. And no doubt you've already got disagreements with Chase Hughes.
Yeah, I figure.
You know, so should I trust those? I trust those disagreements with Chase Hughes more than Chase Hughes. Like if Chase Hughes
Yeah,
disagreed, I've got this dude here called Angelo as a credible character. I think that he's got a good head on his shoulders and he's already done the studying. Like I can trust that you've done the studying and that you've probably got a credible opinion of I don't agree with Chase Hughes. Because Chase Hughes probably ain't gonna sit there and be like, I can't lie, I'm disagreeing with myself when somebody's paying him 50 million.
Yeah, so
might.
we can
Right.
bounce this off after pod. On the topic of 8, does anybody have anything left they want to cover? On the topic of Enneagram in general?
This is just was like the most mentor back and forth ever. That's all I'll say.
John, to be brief, because Angelo opened it up, do you have a final challenge? End the pod, I think everybody has everything on Enneagram. Angelo wants to be challenged. Do you have a challenge, John?
No, I think, I mean, to be fair, a good chunk of the podcast was actually us challenging each other even before it got brought, to be honest. So I think I'm good.
All right, so my idea, let's just wrap this up. Let's be sort of be succinct, but let's wrap it off on a high. Man, 7s, what's your favorite thing about 8s? And 8s, what's your favorite thing about 7s?
I like how direct they are. I really do appreciate it. I was thinking about this earlier today where I'll be quick with it because I know we're trying to wrap things up. I need to have a conversation with a person, and I have to like put my foot down in that conversation, and I'm so uneased by that. Um, but hearing how Angelo and Zapson communicate, not only just with each other, but with me and John, it's been a good eye opener. It's something I hope to practice and maybe be able to be more confident in myself and discipline myself in. So I appreciate the directness.
This might not be like, I don't know, you guys might not necessarily like agree with this obviously, but I think like I like the narcissistic display of 8s. I think like our motivations are obviously like very different about like 7s, but I'm just like, I don't know, real still recognizes real. I'm just like, you're pushing yourself out there even if I think that's dumb. I do the same thing, so like in a way we're kind of like same difference. And I feel like I enjoyed the conversation with like Angelo in particular because like it felt like you know when you're arguing, yeah, it literally was what it was, like, arguing with a friend or like arguing with a sibling. Like we're obviously very like hell bent on our beliefs, but like I really don't think there's any like malice. So I'm just like, yeah, it makes sense that 8s are can be wings with 7s and 7s can be wings with 8. So I'm just like, in a sense, a lot of things that we argue about are like same differences in a way. So I still recognize that.
So same thing. So kind of similar to Shane. Like your favorite thing about them is the directness. Like it's all out on the table.
Yeah. That was technically the same in a sense, sure.
Okay. 8s, what's your favorite thing about 7s? Wrap it up.
Favorite thing is that they are way more receptive than I thought they would be as long as they understand that you have good intent.
For real.
Whimsy. I like the fact you guys are whimsy and the honesty that
Hell
comes
yeah,
with that
we're from
your nature, you know? Like I think one of the most respectable things I think about 7s, if this is true, I definitely saw this in John. This is one of the reasons why I really like John, is because you're honest and you don't care for being honest, you know, because there's usually a massive cognitive disposition that people could have where they're worried about speaking their mind. So at least you don't have that. If you don't have to worry about speaking your mind, you can deal with your mind a lot more.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Cool. I think that's a cool place to wrap it up.